Part 38. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 377. As a tourist attraction, Azura Valley has many advantages, but also some disadvantages, such as inconvenient transportation. Having said that, because a day is long, difficulties can be overcome. They made a special trip to go shopping for clothes, and at 2:48 p.m., they returned to the original place with large and small bags. For convenience, Ninomiya Chizuru directly wore a newly bought skirt. There was not much time left before the scheduled shooting time in the afternoon, and Kurosawa Hikaru also made up for her considering the difference in shooting effects. Done. Kurosawa Hikaru took the makeup tools, fiddled with Ninomiya Chizuru's face for a while, carefully examined it a few times, and nodded with satisfaction. So fast. Sitting on a folding stool, Ninomiya Chizuru couldn't help but feel surprised. To be honest, she was quite nervous to let a man put on makeup, and the makeup artist was Kurosawa. Although there are many male makeup artists in this world, if it is not a profession related to artists, you usually don't come into contact with such people. In most cases, it is normal for men not to put on makeup. This is simply a fairy. Kurosawa, your makeup skills are too good, right? At this moment, Igarashi Runa looked over and was suddenly amazed and shocked. Is there a mirror? I want to see it too. Seeing her shocked reaction, Ninomiya Chizuru's curiosity was immediately aroused. Because it was the first time she asked Kurosawa Hikaru to help her with makeup, she didn't know how it would work, so she was particularly concerned about the result. After all, she didn't know whether it was good or bad. But judging from Runa's reaction, the result should be good, which made her a little curious. There is no mirror, I didn't buy it just now. In response to this urgent request, Kurosawa Hikaru looked around and said, you can use the selfie camera of your mobile phone to see, it's really beautiful. At this moment, Igarashi Runa took out her mobile phone and handed it to Chizuru. Okay. Ninomiya Chizuru remembered that there was this method, nodded, took the mobile phone, turned on the camera, and switched to the selfie camera. After some operation, a beautiful face was reflected in the mobile phone. When she saw herself on the screen, even though she had expected a good result, she was still stunned. Because the woman on the phone screen was so beautiful that it was incredible and stunning. Everyone is most familiar with their own appearance, especially those who pay attention to their image. They have to look in the mirror at least a dozen times a day to confirm that there is no sloppy or uneven appearance. But now, when Ninomiya Chizuru looked at herself on the phone screen, she felt a sense of strangeness. Is this really me? Ninomiya Chizuru shook the phone left and right, feeling confused. Of course it's you. Kurosawa Hikaru stood aside and saw her confused reaction, and felt funny and affirmed it. Your makeup skills are too amazing, I feel like I have become a different person. After getting this affirmation, Ninomiya Chizuru looked at it again, was very stunned, and was amazed. It's not that my skills are so great, but that you are so beautiful as a model. I just put on eye makeup for you and combed your hair. Faced with such compliments, Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head and looked at her breathtakingly beautiful face with a soft and fond look. His makeup is only entry level, and he has not yet turned decay into magic, let alone in such a short time. In this era, if you want to become a beauty in the eyes of others, the method is very simple. A graceful figure, a fashionable hairstyle, exquisite eye makeup, delicate eyebrows, beautiful clothes, and a mask. As long as you master the above 6 points, even a girl with an ordinary appearance can transform herself into a beauty with a high rate of turning heads on the street. For Chizuru Ninomiya, who is naturally beautiful, has beautiful facial features and outstanding temperament, the effect of adding eye makeup and hairstyle is so strong that it is hard to describe. Chizuru Ninomiya is so beautiful at this moment. The blue hair is clearly separated, as if it is telling her exquisiteness. The thin eyebrows are as slender as willows, as if it is telling her softness. She has a pair of phoenix eyes, with the inner corners slightly tilted inwards, and the tails of her eyes are very long and slightly raised upwards. With the embellishment of eye makeup, she gives people a sense of cold, noble, and alienated feeling. Soft and cold, like a fairy, exuding the unique beauty of women, and having an intellectual and cold temperament. Eye makeup and hair. Ninomiya Chizuru felt his love, and her heart was filled with joy, and she looked at the phone carefully again. With a new perspective, looking at the same thing again will bring a completely different feeling. Her eyes became more slender and straight with the embellishment of eyeshadow, and her eyes, among the facial features, showed an extremely strong sense of presence. Take a closer look, her hair is also very beautiful, although the change is very small, she can't see the specific details, but she can feel the exquisiteness. In fact, among the facial features, the eyes have the most important position in whether a person looks good or not. Because eyes are the windows to the soul, even if a person's facial features are not good looking overall, if they have a pair of beautiful eyes, it can directly bring a qualitative leap to a face. If the facial features are already good looking, then if they have a pair of beautiful big eyes, it will be even more amazing. Let's take our time to watch it after the filming is over. It will be quite busy next because we need to change costumes. We have to finish the filming before dark. He was very happy to see her. Kurosawa admired her for a while and then said, "Chizuru, what you're looking at now is just the face. If you look at the whole thing, it will only look better. Watch the video after the shooting." Igarashi Runa was also comforting at the side. Good. Realizing that what she had seen was not complete enough, Ninomiya Chizuru nodded immediately, and for a moment she was full of expectations for the next shooting. As for the worries about changing clothes in the wild, they were greatly diluted by this eager expectation. After the filming officially started, Kurosawa Hikaru has been giving orders, holding the camera, directing poses and timing. During this period, there were some minor incidents, such as the issue of changing clothes in the wild. Even though Ninomiya Chizuru was looking forward to it, she grew up in the city and was a mature and intellectual woman. She was still very shy about this kind of behavior out of reserve. However, under the double siege of Kurosawa Hikaru and Igarashi Runa, and even coaxed and deceived, Ninomiya Chizuru did it even though she felt ashamed. The daylight hours in summer tend to be longer, and the sky gradually darkens until 1847 in the evening. Although there are lights, shooting can also be done at night, but after all, it is shooting a MV, not a movie, and the work required is not that complicated. At 7:20 p.m., they changed the location and left Asa Valley to the nearest place. Found a restaurant. Kurosawa, I want to watch the video. He sat down on the sofa area blocked by a screen. After half a day of shooting, the long-awaited Ninomiya Chizuru sat next to him and said, "Okay." Seeing her impatient look, Kurosawa smiled, turned around, took out his SLR from his camera bag, and started looking for video files. "Runa, come quickly." At the same time, Ninomiya Chizuru also greeted. Because of her experience during the day, Igarashi Runa, although a little nervous and uncomfortable, still sat next to Kurosawa Hikaru. The two women surrounded Kurosawa Hikaru, forming an 010 situation. "This scene is so beautiful, it makes me cry." "Don't be so exaggerated." As the two beauties double-teamed him, Kurosawa Hikari was speechless in the gap. Needless to say, this situation is a dream for any man. After all, these two are both beautiful women, and the SLR monitor is not even palm-sized. In order to see more clearly, they have to be very close. Especially when they see some attractive and exciting pictures, they will get carried away and want to get closer. On the right side is the smooth and tender arm of Ninomiya Chizuru, and on the left side is the soft and elastic arm of Igarashi Runa. Did they discuss it and did it on purpose? Or were they simply attracted by the video? This time, the situation was even worse than during the day. Kurosawa's eyes squinted, looking left and right, his mind very restless. Should he say it or not? They were too close tonight, almost as if they were clinging to him. If the hugs during the day were what he had thought about, now it was a dream that had come into reality. It's so beautiful. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at Igarashi Runa's face and couldn't help but think. Because of his acquaintance with Igarashi Runa, he had been positioned as his girlfriend's best friend from the beginning. In order to avoid suspicion and to keep a distance, he had never actually taken a serious look at her appearance. Now that I look at her carefully, I can see that her profile is very beautiful, and her delicate and beautiful facial features, whether it is the oval face or the willow leaf eyes, give people a feeling of being approachable and easy to get along with. Her appearance is not the type that is stunning and aggressive at first glance, but rather the type that is attractive. It looks good at first glance, but upon closer inspection, it becomes even more beautiful and makes people fall into it. At this moment, Kurosawa Hikaru's eyes met a pair of beautiful eyes. However, after their eyes met for a moment, it was over. Igarashi Runa lowered her eyes to watch the video on the SLR monitor again, as if trying to escape. Pretend you don't notice me. Kurosawa Hikaru originally felt guilty the moment he met her eyes, but after seeing her reaction, his mind immediately became active. This reaction is really funny and makes people want to play a prank. I'm so tired. While thinking, Kurosawa no longer held the SLR camera with both hands, but held it with his right hand, raised his left arm high, and pretended to stretch. Then, when his left arm fell again, it was no longer in front, but behind him. To be more precise, the point where his arm landed was on Igarashi Runa's lower back. She was wearing a waist-revealing t-shirt, with her slender waist, and her palms were gently placed on it. Her skin was very smooth, as if she were placing her hands on a wall as smooth as a mirror. She could not place her hands firmly at all, and her hands would go down. Fall the same. As soon as this action came out, Igarashi Runa stared at the SLR monitor's beautiful eyes, and she was immediately greeted by a big earthquake. Her long eyelashes trembled, and her bright red lips pursed slightly. Obviously, this sudden action made her extremely shaken. Still pretending not to notice. Kurosawa Hikaru's mind was very active when he found that she clearly noticed it but didn't react at all. The feeling that a woman doesn't show any sign of what you do, as if she acquiesces to you to do anything, and lets you do whatever you want, will make any man want to stop and take advantage of her. Realizing how tolerant she was towards him, Kurosawa's hands suddenly became dishonest. His hands were no longer simply placed on her lower back, but his arms reached forward and gently held her waist from the side. This morning, when he saw her bending down to pick up her luggage, he actually had an urge to hold her waist. Following this action, Igarashi Runa suddenly lost her composure and raised her eyes to look at him, her eyes somewhat dissatisfied. It's just up to me. Noticing this look, because she didn't look angry, Kurosawa Hikaru wasn't afraid at all, but rather became playful. Igarashi Runa found that he was unmoved in the face of protest and rejection in her eyes, and she suddenly felt helpless. What does her look mean? It's like she's saying there's no hope. But before he could continue to take action, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly noticed the change in Igarashi Runa's eyes. After reading it, he felt confused. Thoughtfully, Kurosawa followed her gaze and met a pair of eyes. Those were Ninomiya Chizuru's eyes. She didn't know when she had already raised her head and looked at him. And her blue eyes were calm and cold at this moment. Upon realizing this, Kurosawa Hikaru's active mind felt as if a basin of cold water had been poured on him. His scalp went numb, and he quickly took his hands back. This situation is similar to how you feel when you strike up a conversation with another girl and have a happy conversation, but then you turn around and see your girlfriend staring at you. I was discovered, what should I do? Is she angry? But she encouraged me to attack Miss Runa. After he stopped his hand honestly, Kurosawa Hikaru felt a little uneasy and couldn't help but peek at him. It's time to order. I'll go to the toilet and ask the waiter to get the menu. Faced with his guilty glance, Ninomiya Chizuru did not get angry, but smiled slightly, stood up, and walked out. Kurosawa Hikaru and Igarashi Runa stayed where they were, watching her figure gradually go away. You are too brave. Chizuru is still watching. If you dare to act like this, you are totally seeking death. Igarashi Runa let out a long breath, and rolled her eyes at Kurosawa Hikari with a speechless and complaining expression. Although this glance was filled with complaints, her tone was full of tenderness and helplessness. In fact, she was scared enough just now, because when Kurosawa stretched his body and put his left hand behind his back, Ninomiya Chizuru raised his eyes to look at them, but then took them back, as if in acquiescence this kind of thing happens. She saw everything very clearly, but it turned out that Kurosawa seemed to be obsessed with it. Simply putting his hand on her lower back was not enough, he even held her waist, attracting Chizuru's attention again. I don't want to do this either, but I can't help it. You didn't react at all. Savoring her lesson, Kurosawa Hikaru realized that she was not angry and immediately explained. In fact, he didn't think of it at first, but Miss Runa's reaction and acquiescence made him fascinated. Is it still my fault? You said I didn't respond, so you have to get angry and tell me not to touch me. Hearing this explanation, Igarashi Runa couldn't help but glare at him. Feel sorry. Realizing that she was a little dissatisfied, Kurosawa Hikaru chose to admit his mistake. Kinzuru is so smart, don't use such poor acting skills in the future, just the way you stretched just now, let alone Kinzuru, the children will notice that your behavior is abnormal. In order to avoid a similar situation happening next time, Igarashi Runa couldn't help but complain. The menu is here, let's order something first. Not long after, Ninomiya Chizuru came back with a menu in her hand, placed it on the table, and sat back next to Kurosawa Hikaru. Her expression and reaction were calm, as if nothing had happened. Ordering is easy, everyone flips through the menu and orders what they like. However, because of what happened just now, the atmosphere became a bit dull, and the situation of watching the video together was broken. Kurosawa, is the MV completed? While waiting for the meal to be served, Ninomiya Chizuru was the first to break the silent atmosphere. The MV has been shot, but it's not finished yet. When I get it back and use the computer for post-editing, I'll send you the finished product first. Seeing her taking the initiative to open up the atmosphere, Kurosawa Hikaru also answered. You can also post-edit. Didn't you say you couldn't do it before? When Ninomiya Chizuru heard this, she was immediately surprised. When he finished recording the piano piece Croatian Rhapsody, Kurosawa said he wouldn't handle it and asked Runa to find someone to edit it later. However, because that kind of editing is very simple, you only need to cut out the highlights and leave the main content, so Runa went to deal with it directly. You can learn things you don't know. I learned them briefly. Faced with her doubts, Kurosawa Hikaru smiled. MV editing is not the same thing as audio editing. Why don't I find someone to handle it? I know a few very powerful editors. Realizing this situation, Igarashi Runa suggested. No, although those editors may have more skills and experience than me, no one understands Adelina by the water better than me, and those people cannot understand the beauty of Sister Kinzuru better than me. Kurosawa shook his head, not intending to leave this matter to others. That's what I say, but post-editing is not that simple, Kurosawa. It's not that I don't believe you, it's just that some tasks are better left to professionals. As an industry insider, Igarashi Runa is very aware of the MV production process and difficulty, and couldn't help but say. Although there are many geniuses in the industry, they can handle everything from arranging, writing lyrics, playing, singing, to all post-processing matters. But that is a time-consuming and labor-intensive approach. With a firm as a background, there is no need to do this kind of thing personally. I understand what you're saying, but this is Kinhe's first MV. I want to complete it. Even if it's not easy, I will find a way to do it. Wouldn't it be better if you spend time and effort to learn this and think about a few more songs? Runa, let him edit it. If he can't edit it well, it's not too late to find a professional to do it. Seeing that they had different opinions, Ninomiya Chizuru interrupted the argument between the two. All right. When Runa Igarashi saw her speaking, she originally wanted to persuade her a little more, but after thinking about it, she had to give up. Miss Runa, don't worry, maybe I am very talented, learn quickly, and can cut well. Because of the lessons learned from the past, Kurosawa comforted her. Actually, I'm not worried that you can't do it, I'm just. Hearing this, Igarashi Runa shook his head and wanted to explain, but he hesitated. Just what? Kurosawa Hikaru was a little puzzled when he saw that she was blocked mid-sentence. It's okay, I'm going to use the toilet too. Igarashi Runa took a deep breath, glanced at them, and then stood up. Seeing her getting up and leaving, Kurosawa's eyes couldn't help but follow her. For some reason, he always felt that the figure behind him was very disappointed, as if he was leaving angrily. Runa is unhappy. Ninomiya Chizuru, who was also watching her walk away, leaned on the back of the sofa with her arms folded and said softly. Why would I make her unhappy if I edit the MV? Kurosawa was a little surprised. It was clear that he was obsessed with everything just now, taking advantage of every opportunity, but Miss Runa was not unhappy. Why would she be sad about this? Maybe it's because I'm unbalanced, I don't feel like I'm participating enough. Ninomiya Chizuru knew Runa, her best friend, very well, and made a decision after thinking about it. A sense of participation. If you ask her to find an editor, if the edited product is good, wouldn't she be involved in this MV editing and come in handy? But the release of the MV, whether it is promotion or subsequent operations, all depends on her. It is very useful. That's true, but she wants to help you as much as possible. Just like if you encounter something, I will also want to do more to help you and share more of your burden. So that's it, then I won't cut it and let her find someone to do it. Let's forget it this time. If we encounter this kind of situation in the future, if there are any troubles or problems, try to leave them to her, she has a character that can't take time off. Good. Kurosawa Hikari nodded thoughtfully. Thinking about it carefully, the situation was similar the time Miss Runa cried before. It was obvious that something was going on but he didn't tell her, making her feel like an outsider. And what you just said is that the promotion and operation are all dependent on her. I will find an opportunity to talk to her later. I'll tell you later. Kurosawa Hikaru has no procrastination. Now that he has figured out the situation, he must solve it. You can talk to me later, and give me your hand. Seeing that he was very decisive, Ninomiya Kinhe didn't object with her chin slightly, and then she stretched out her hand and said, Why? When Kurosawa Hikaru heard this, he was puzzled, but he also obeyed, put the SLR on the table, and stretched out his hand to her. When he freed his hands, Ninomiya Chizuru sat up straight, took his hand, put it over his head, put it behind him, and let him hold his waist. This situation left Kurosawa Hikaru stunned. Unlike Miss Runa when she was wearing a midriff-bearing dress, she was wearing a dress and the feeling of holding her waist was completely different. No matter what you do to Runa, I will do the same. Holding his waist and leaning on his arm, Ninomiya Chizuru raised her head and looked at him and said seriously, Yes. Realizing her purpose of doing this, Kurosawa couldn't help laughing and nodded in agreement. She is obviously jealous, but she only shows it when we are alone. Is this the cuteness of a sister-girlfriend? Will update early tomorrow. Tokyo's most affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 378. How did you feel about today's shooting? Different from the sneakiness just now, when facing Ninomiya Chizuru, Kurosawa Hikaru held her waist, which can be said to be fair and above board. Whether it is emotionally or relationally, this kind of thing is natural. Quite interesting. Chizuru Ninomiya recalled her experience of being the heroine of the MV today and it felt very fresh. She had never had the dream of being an actress before, but because of this, the unexpected experience gave people a very novel feeling. Speaking of which, do you still remember our agreement? Kurosawa Hikaru saw the corners of her lips raised slightly and chuckled, then thought about it and asked. What agreement? Leaning on his arm, Ninomiya Chizuru was a little puzzled. Did you forget your promise to buy me a car? Kurosawa pretended to be shocked when he discovered that she was unconscious. I heard what I said. Next, as long as you go shoot an advertisement, the office will be able to earn hundreds of millions. Then we will split the payment. It's completely simple for you to buy a car. You still need me to give you some money, do you buy it? After receiving the answer, Ninomiya Chizuru became aware, and then raised her eyes to look at his side face with some resentment in her eyes. Different from the original, Kurosawa is now famous all over the country as 0 Hour, and is even famous overseas. Her savings of less than 1 billion were not even worth signing a few more contracts than him. Although she hated to admit it, she felt that she was not worthy of Kurosawa. Kurosawa is really amazing. In just over a month, he transformed into a superstar, and this is not the end for him, he will only get better in the future. You can't say that. Although I can buy it, I would rather you buy it for me. In response to this statement, Kurosawa Hikaru turned his head slightly and retorted. Why? Ninomiya Chizuru raised the corners of her mouth slightly, but still pretended not to understand and asked. Because I want the car from you, and I need an answer. Seeing that she was asking questions knowingly, Kurosawa Hikaru was not afraid to speak out. Maybe saying this is like asking for a gift, which is not polite or polite enough. But as a sister girlfriend, Chizuru prefers taking care of others than being taken care of. Maybe it's because of the desire to be needed, or maybe it's because of the age gap. As the older one, she wants to do something more than doing nothing. Answer. Ninomiya Chizuru was a little puzzled. Do you have an answer for making peace with me? Kurosawa nodded slightly and looked down at her. In fact, it is really easy for him to buy a car now. What's more, he didn't even need to pay a penny, he could just ask brother Shinichi to get a few luxury cars. But if he does this, it means that he owes a favor. In this world, the most difficult debt to pay is the debt of favor. He was well aware of this matter and was more accustomed to solving it himself than asking for help. Having said that, he was happy to owe a favor to Ninomiya Chizuru. Because people's feelings will continue to get better in the process of helping each other. Today, Chizuru Ninomiya gave him a car, and he would find a way to repay this kindness in the future. Next time when I have a holiday, we will go buy a car. Ninomiya Chizuru looked at him seriously for a few times, lowered her head, clasped her hands together, and opened and closed her fingers, feeling a little anxious and expectant. If Kurosawa Hikaru said it so straightforwardly and she still couldn't understand it, then she was too slow. There needs to be an opportunity between them, an opportunity for complete reconciliation. Maybe their current relationship can be considered reconciled, but after all, they had a quarrel before, and there was a gap, which was not natural enough. Just like today, maybe we can hold each other and sit together, but it's still far from what it was before. Then I'll wait for your vacation. Seeing her little movement, Kurosawa Hikaru reached forward with his right hand, held her delicate hand, and smiled. Don't be in a hurry to be happy, you won't have a holiday until next week. Finding that he was very happy, Ninomiya Chizuru felt a little excited, but she still rolled her eyes at him. Is this brother so easily satisfied? Don't say it's a week, I'll wait for a month. Kurosawa Hikaru is not bothered about this at all. In fact, it doesn't matter whether she has a car or not, as long as she plans to reconcile with herself, that's fine. The most important thing is that if he takes this as an opportunity, he doesn't have to wait until he catches Miss Runa and fulfills her 3 demands before reconciliation can be considered. It won't take that long. Seeing that he couldn't stop being happy, Ninomiya Chizuru's heartstrings trembled, her eyes softened a bit, she lowered her head and whispered softly. In fact, she couldn't wait any longer, otherwise she wouldn't have resolutely resigned. Unfortunately, after the summer vacation, many changes occurred, so that their relationship stagnated or even regressed. Having said that, by the time they reconcile, their relationship may be a natural one. I'm sorry about what happened just now. I originally thought I was going on a date with you today, so I had to be careful, but I couldn't hold it back. Seeing her tender side, Kurosawa Hikaru felt a little embarrassed when he remembered what happened just now. Logically speaking, he could control the girl's active contact, for example, when Hitomi Matsushita deliberately tried to tease him under the table, he was completely unmoved. But he didn't know what happened today. Faced with Miss Runa's unsuspecting approach and her indulgence in pretending not to notice, he couldn't help but tease her. Perhaps it was because deep in his heart, he had buried affection a long time ago, or maybe it was Kinzuru's instigation, the attitude of explaining things to both parties, and the sure-to-win attitude, and the sudden arrival of a good opportunity, which made him subconsciously take action. Action? You mean you are holding Runa's waist? When Ninomiya Chizuru heard this, she was stunned for a moment and asked. Yes, Kurosawa nodded honestly. Then the person you should apologize to is not me, but her. I know, but I also want to apologize to you. Actually, I'm not angry when you do something small with Runa in front of me, no, I'm still a little angry. Are you angry or not? Kurosawa Hikaru noticed that her statement was repeated, and he suddenly became confused. A woman's heart is like a needle in the sea, this is really true. Both Chizuru and Mirai are the types of people whose thoughts are hard to guess, and around him, Yuki-chan is the only one whose thoughts are easier to guess. What I'm angry about is that you only looked at her just now and didn't look at me the whole time. Because his attitude was very frank, Ninomiya Chizuru stared at him with some dissatisfaction. I promise you, this will never happen again. Realizing the root cause of her unhappiness, Kurosawa just admits his mistakes and corrects them when he knows they are wrong. That's not necessary. Just don't worry about one thing and lose the other. Ninomiya Chizuru shook her head and did not say anything. It would be bad if Kurosawa's affection and desire to move towards Runa were completely extinguished because of this incident. Even though she was angry just now, she still chose to go to the bathroom to adjust her mood just because of this concern. She had already discovered that before she took the initiative to raise her expectations, Kurosawa really had no idea about Runa. Kurosawa Hikaru also kept this request in mind. At this moment, Ninomiya Chizuru suddenly moved her arms, sat up straight, left his arms, moved her buttocks, adjusted her seat, and distanced herself. What's wrong? Noticing her sudden movement, Kurosawa Hikaru was a little confused and looked around for a while. However, he did not see Igarashi Runa. In other words, the reason why Chizuru suddenly distanced herself was not because she didn't want Miss Runa to see the intimate sitting between them. I'm very sorry to bother you. Soon, a female clerk came over with the dishes and placed them on the table. After putting down 2 dishes, she placed the tray in front of her, bowed slightly, and left. Is it necessary to be so cautious? When the female clerk left, Kurosawa Hikaru realized the reason for her distance and was a little surprised. It is necessary. When your new MV is released, everyone will realize that I am your girlfriend from zero. If before that, someone notices that my relationship with you is so close, then your identity will be exposed." Ninomiya Chizuru nodded and explained. With that said, she stood up and sat directly on the sofa opposite. Yes, there are 2 sofas in this seat, but just now the 3 of them were crowded on one sofa. But this is normal, because you have to watch the video, although in terms of results, I didn't finish it at all. Indeed, Kurosawa Hikaru saw her movement and wanted to stop her, but was speechless. Not long after, Igarashi Runa came back. Different from the disappointment when she left just now, when she returned again, her steps were brisk and she seemed to be in a good mood. "Why are you sitting here?" However, as he walked to the table, Igarashi Runa looked at Kurosawa Hikaru, then at Chizuru, and couldn't help but ask. As she spoke, she couldn't help but glance at Kurosawa Hikari. Could it be that while she was going to the bathroom just now, calming down alone and changing her mood, Kurosawa made Chizuru angry again? Facing her suspicious gaze, Kurosawa seemed to be able to read her mind and shook his head in denial. "The waiter has started serving the food. When 0 Hour's new MV is released, my identity will be 0 Hour's girlfriend. I can't be seen getting too close to him." At this moment, Ninomiya Chizuru explained. "I see." Igarashi Runa was immediately relieved when she learned the reason, and then sat down. The seat she chose was next to Chizuru. As for Kurosawa Hikaru, Chizuru was sitting on the opposite side. Even if she had 100 courages, she would not dare to sit back in her original seat. Because of the incident just now, the dinner that followed was very normal. After eating, drinking, resting and chatting for a while, Kurosawa Hikaru and his party walked out of the restaurant. "Miss Runa, you have to go back to Tokyo. You drove for so long this morning. I will drive the way home." Coming to the car, Kurosawa Hikaru also said. Whether it was out of sympathy or out of gratitude, he felt that he had to do something. After all, he just took advantage of Miss Runa and touched her sexy waist. "No, I've been free all day. As a photographer, you've been shooting for so long, so you're more tired than me. Just let me do the driving." Runa Igarashi took out the car keys from his pocket and shook his head. Because she meant what she said, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't force her, so he could only get in the car and sit in the back seat. Although Runa seems to be easy to talk to, she actually has a strong personality. No matter what it is, as long as it is a good thing, she will want to do her part. Kurosawa Hikaru had just sat down, and Ninomiya Chizuru, who got into the car right after him, approached him and whispered. "But I always feel bad about letting her be the driver." Although this kind of moral character and character are very good, Kurosawa Hikaru always feels embarrassed. Just follow her wishes, but you can't take it for granted. This is her way of expressing her kindness. Ninomiya Chizuru noticed his depression and snickered. "I see." Because the lights in the back seat of the car were still on, Kurosawa was happy to see her snickering. If you like someone, everything from words to eyes to actions will be revealed inadvertently. Just like now, Chizuru should like Runa very much, so she will be particularly happy when she mentions Ms. Runa's strengths and weaknesses. As for taking other people's kindness for granted, he would not do that. At the same time, Igarashi Runa walked around the car, looked at the surrounding environment, and after confirming that there was no problem, opened the driver's door. Unconsciously, I have been busy until late. It should be past 11 o'clock when I get home. I woke up early this morning, and now I have to run the night train. Why not stay in a hotel in Nagano to rest for one night and go back tomorrow? However, Igarashi Runa did not get in the car immediately, but looked at the 2 people in the back seat and suggested. "Are you tired? I'll drive." Upon hearing this, Kurosawa Hikaru immediately volunteered. "Runa, I have to go to work tomorrow. Ninomiya Chizuru knew her best friend very well and knew that she deliberately wanted to stay out for the night, so she gave her a rolling look and reminded her. The fact that she can come to shoot today is the result of asking for leave. If she stays in Nagano for one night and returns to Tokyo tomorrow, it will be at least noon and she will definitely be late. If you have to go to work tomorrow morning, you'd better go back to Tokyo. Finding that their reactions were different, Igarashi Runa thought about it and gave up the idea of assisting. Miss Runa, let me drive. After deciding on the return trip, Kurosawa Hikaru repeated the decision because he didn't get a response. No, I'll just drive. Igarashi Runa sat directly in the driver's seat without giving him a chance to take over. Soon, the car started the journey back to Tokyo. Kurosawa, when do you plan to release a new MV? The road home was long. Ninomiya Chizuru sat in the back seat and took the initiative to find a topic. Look at Ms. Runa's arrangements. I don't quite understand what is the best time for an artist to release a song. After hearing this, Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while, but without making a final decision, he carried the ball to the front seat. Things are different now. He is no longer alone and has many people around him. Faced with many things, he cannot make decisions arbitrarily, but still has to take everyone's thoughts into account. If the MV is edited quickly enough, it will be released this week. You will have a performance at the end of the month. As the first official performance, we can release more songs to better promote and build momentum. Igarashi Runa glanced at Kurosawa Hikari through the rearview mirror and responded. Does Kurosawa have a show at the end of the month? This was the first time Ninomiya Chizuru heard about this and she was surprised. Yes, and this performance is very important. The value of 0 hour depends on the ticket sales of this performance. Igarashi Runa nodded slightly, looked ahead, and drove seriously, and added. No matter what kind of artist he is, his ability to monetize is the most important indicator. Although 0 hour is now very popular on the internet, his ability to monetize has yet to be tested. Even though she knew that 0 hour had a strong ability to attract money, such as attracting sky-high contracts worth tens of billions and game endorsements worth billions, the world didn't know about such private things. There isn't much time left this month, isn't that what happens next week? Ninomiya Chizuru thought thoughtfully and confirmed. Yes, next Wednesday, August 31 St. Igarashi Runa nodded slightly and explained. Would it be Wednesday? Wouldn't it be better on Friday and the weekend? Ninomiya Chizuru took out her mobile phone and looked at the calendar and expressed her own opinion. Although she is not an industry insider, from a common sense point of view, no matter what kind of event it is definitely better to hold it on the weekend than on the weekday. There are advantages and disadvantages. If the audience can still be full on Wednesday, it will be able to show the influence of 0 hour. Kurosawa, how long will it take you to cut it? Ninomiya Chizuru thought for a while and asked. I'll edit it after I wake up tomorrow. I don't know how long it will take yet. Kurosawa Hikaru has no idea about this, because his date mission with Chizuru has not yet been completed. Computer video editing skills, or experience the status of the card. In fact, he currently has no relevant knowledge. The experience card will not come into play until he takes the video and sits in front of the computer. Don't worry, this is a new MV for the public. It is a very meaningful first MV. Compared with a half-finished product that is rushed, the quality of the finished product is guaranteed to be better. Don't make up for it. At this moment, Igarashi Runa also spoke. Slow work will produce fine work, you take your time. Ninomiya Chizuru also thinks it makes sense. Sister Chizuru. Seeing her nod in agreement, Kurosawa Hikaru thought about it and suddenly said. What's wrong? Ninomiya Chizuru looked at him with some confusion. If you kiss me, I will definitely cut faster and the quality of the finished product will be better. Following her gaze, Kurosawa Hikaru leaned close to her ear and whispered. What does this have to do with it? Ninomiya Chizuru, who originally thought he was going to say something serious, rolled her eyes at him unhappily after hearing this. It does have to do with it, because when people are in a good mood, their work efficiency will increase and their attitude will be more positive. Seeing that she was unwilling, Kurosawa Hikaru did not give up and made up a lie. This date mission is quite special. Even if you complete Let Her Kiss You, because there is still the goal of shooting a high-scoring MV with her as the heroine that has not been completed, there is no way to make the computer audio editing skill experience card permanent. Of course, if Chizuru can kiss him, he will definitely be more positive in his attitude when doing things. After all, most of the time on today's date was spent working, and with Miss Runa present, there was no physical contact between the two of them except for hugging. It is no exaggeration to say that in terms of the number and degree of contact on this date, it is not even as good as when Chizuru ran to his house the night before. If he went home to sleep like this, he would definitely not sleep well tonight. No. Chizuru Ninomiya glanced at the seat in front of her, feeling a little embarrassed. Even in front of strangers, she would feel embarrassed to do something intimate with Kurosawa, let alone in front of her good sisters. Just for a while, really just for a while. Seeing that she refused, Kurosawa Hikaru directly coaxed her. Let's talk about it next time we are alone together, okay? Chizuru Ninomiya shook her head, looked ahead, and coaxed him. Okay. Facing her concerns, Kurosawa Hikaru felt very sorry, but he could only give up. He looked at her delicate lips reluctantly and sat down honestly. As he compromised, Ninomiya Chizuru saw him withdraw his head and sit down in disappointment, and she softened her heart immediately. Anyway, Runa will be like me in the future, and no one can laugh at anyone. After hesitating for a few seconds, Ninomiya Chizuru made up her mind and went for it directly. After thinking about it, Ninomiya Chizuru looked at his lips, pursed her lips lightly, moistened her lips, and then moved her face closer. This kiss was like two clouds intertwined, soft and gentle, and also like a dragonfly touching the water, leaving as soon as it touched. The sudden kiss made Kurosawa Hikaru stunned, his eyes widened, and he looked at her in disbelief. Just for a moment. Seeing his surprised look, Ninomiya Chizuru felt a little relieved, and as their lips separated, she slowly sat back in her original position, whispering with a hot face. However, just as she sat down, Kurosawa Hikaru responded and kissed her lips directly. Unlike the dragonfly touching the water just now, this kiss was very tough and even more intense. Sister Chizuru, I love you. After kissing her lips, Kurosawa Hikaru looked into her eyes, seeing her surprise, his eyes were full of love. Maybe it was just a kiss, but it was the first time she kissed herself since the Kyoto tournament. And unlike the last time at his house, when they agreed to kiss but kissed on the face, this time she chose to kiss his lips. The meaning of this incident is very important, because it represents an attitude. Although a lot of things happened from last night to today, such as the smell of other women's perfume on his body, and when he was having dinner tonight, he was obsessed with flirting with Miss Runa. Although such things happened, she still chose to kiss his lips. This kiss represented the thawing of the past and showed her feelings. Men are creatures who are not good at expressing emotions, but they are also a group that is good at responding. When a man is loved, he will feel it very clearly. Faced with his sudden kiss and confession, Ninomiya Chizuru didn't know how to react for a while. I love you, too. However, when she met Kurosawa's eyes full of love, her surprise suddenly disappeared and turned into 1,000 tender feelings. She already had the answer in her heart. Sorry, I said I would be early today, but not much earlier. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 379. Chizuru-san, Runa-san, good night. As Runa Igarashi's car parked in front of his house, Hikaru Kurosawa got out of the car, took the camera bag from the trunk, waved goodbye to the two people in the car, and smiled. Good night, sweet dreams. Ninomiya Chizuru sat in the back seat and waved gently. Good night, go to bed early. Igarashi Runa, holding the steering wheel, also responded. After saying goodbye, Kurosawa Hikaru closed the car door. Soon, the car started again and the journey continued. Hikaru Kurosawa, carrying a camera bag on one shoulder, watched the car go away, then turned around and walked into his home. The next morning, after Kurosawa woke up, he sat in front of his laptop and started editing. Mission goal progress update, use her as the heroine, shoot a high-scoring MV achieved. Photography trip with Ninomiya Chizuru. The 4 mission goals are achieved, the mission is completed, and the rewards are entry-level computer video editing, entry-level acting, and entry-level makeup. Permanent. Is this done? Following the system prompts, Kurosawa was a little shocked. Immediately afterwards, he started playing the edited MV. Not good enough. Although the finished product looked very good, Kurosawa was not very satisfied. After making this judgment, he sat on the chair and fell into deep thought, absorbing the changes brought about by the skill of video editing, changing from an experience card to a permanent one. The difference between the experience card and the permanent effect is actually very big. The experience card of a certain skill is that when you come into contact with a specific field, countless ideas and techniques will emerge. As for the permanent effect, as long as it is recognized, it can be fully understood. He doesn't know exactly how powerful an entry-level video editor is. In his previous life, he was a game fan, and in this life he is a bookworm. He is not very interested in movies, videos, and the like. But most things in the world are not the best, only better. Let's go back and remake it. After fully absorbing the permanent theoretical knowledge, Kurosawa glanced at the files on the computer desktop, recalled the finished MV he had just seen, and made a decision. Today is Tuesday. Although I have to work as a part-time tutor in the afternoon, it is summer vacation after all, so I still have plenty of time. Xiaoyuki originally wanted to come and play with him, just like before, but he declined because he had to work. Although he couldn't bear to reject Xiaoyuki, this girl's mind is very sensitive and delicate, and she can be easily hurt. However, he felt that it would be more cruel to let Yuki watch him edit Ninomiya Chizuru's first MV, so he had to refuse. After the editing was completed, Kurosawa opened Line with his mobile phone, hesitated for a few seconds, and then made a video call. Kurosawa, what's wrong? The video call was quickly connected, and Igarashi Runa's face appeared on the phone screen. Miss Runa, the MV has been cut, how can I send it to you? Seeing her same attitude and tone as usual, Kurosawa felt relieved and asked. Is the haircut ready so soon? Just use the computer version of Line to send it? Hearing this, Igarashi Runa was very surprised. Good. Kurosawa nodded, then held the phone in his other hand, held the mouse and sent the file to her. Sending files through the computer version of Line is quite normal in Neon. After all, Line is one of the most popular social software among Neon people. Speaking of which, I want to check the quality of the finished product. If it doesn't work, just as agreed, I'll hand it over to the editor I know. Following his movements, Igarashi Runa said after careful consideration. I called you just to remember this promise. Kurosawa Hikaru smiled and didn't care about her ugly words. Are you so confident? Igarashi Runa was a little surprised when she saw his smile. Without diamonds, how can I get a porcelain job? Then I'll just wait and see the finished product. Are you going to have a tutor this afternoon? Yes, what's the matter? It's okay. If you go to tutor, Miss Ichino's should be free, right? She said she was reading at home today. Do you have anything to do with her? Kurosawa Hikaru thought about the contact in the morning, and after answering, he asked. Because she couldn't come to play with him, she went out to play again yesterday. Xiaoyuki worked hard and decided to read seriously at home to catch up on her junior high school homework knowledge. After Ms. Ichino signed the contract, there has been no announcement of the event. I want to have a formal interview with her to discuss the specific development direction. Do you want to wait for you to come with me? No, she has the ability to think independently, and with you helping her make arrangements, I feel more at ease. If you say so, then I will follow my own steps. And don't rush to sign the contract and make announcements. Later, I will shoot a MV for her to make her official debut and then make plans. I understand. We have plenty of time. I plan to test her basic skills first to see her talents and strengths. Then you can contact her directly later. Good. Correct. After talking about Xiaoyuki, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly thought of hugging her waist last night and said suddenly. What? This sudden turn aroused Runa Igarashi's curiosity. Forget it, let's wait until I go to the office tomorrow to talk about it. Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and felt that it would be better to talk about this matter face to face. According to his schedule, he is going to meet with the person in charge of the advertising endorsement project of Cat Carnival tomorrow to further finalize the content and shooting of the advertisement. Having half-spoken words is not a good habit. Igarashi Runa glared at him with resentment. Didn't you do the same thing last night? Kurosawa Hikaru smiled and countered. Maybe half-talking is indeed impolite and can easily offend people, but hiding important things behind messaging apps and mobile phones is even more impolite. Igarashi was speechless. Maybe it was because he mentioned last night that the atmosphere suddenly became silent even through the phone. Did the reception succeed? After a while, Kurosawa Hikaru asked when he saw that the file transfer of the computer version of Line was completed. You've uploaded it over there, I've just started receiving it. Upon hearing this question, Igarashi Runa responded. All right. Realizing this situation, Kurosawa Hikaru nodded. Compared with Tencent's QQ and WeChat, Neon's most mainstream line has less user-friendly and convenient functions. For example, the red reminder function has even extended a lot of attention to the social habits of Neon people. Especially if you don't reply after reading it, it is very impolite and very offending. Speaking of which, do you have any idea about the songs on the album? Because the two people were silent and dull even though they were on the phone, Igarashi Runa took the initiative to pick up the topic. Now that I have an idea, I'll find time to draw up the score, and then I'll go to the office to record it. Speaking of this, Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and responded. The night he pretended to sleep in the office, he indulged in memories and used the melody and beat of the piano to find the music he had heard in his previous life. A proficient piano player with such talent, he can play all the famous piano music. For example, Liszt's The Bell was a famous piano piece that he didn't have to recall. Even though he had never heard it before, the moment his piano skills became entry-level and permanent, the score was engraved in his mind. Inside. For example, he is also familiar with various playing techniques and techniques in the history of piano, even almost instinctively, and he can use them easily. In fact, he has the ability to compose, but he is too busy and has no time to calm down, enter the musical ocean of the piano, and compose his own songs. No matter what, his plan is to bring the famous piano music he heard in his previous life to this world. After all, it would be a waste for such a beautiful song not to be heard in this world. When will it be next? Before the end of the month. Then I'm looking forward to it. Realizing this situation, Igarashi Runa was a little excited. Good. Seeing her very happy look, Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned for a moment, then nodded. Thinking about it carefully, it seems that Miss Runa was always present during his piano performances and was always the first listener. Even on that amusement park date, even though he wanted to dedicate piano music to Chizuru, such as for Alice, Miss Runa was also present. Speaking of which, how long do you plan to perform at the end of this month? Any suggestions? Piano concerts in the industry usually last about 2 hours, which is about the same time as a movie. The performance is divided into the first half and the second half. For example, the first half is 45 minutes, the intermission is 15 minutes, and the second half is 60 minutes. The specific duration will vary from person to person, it depends on your plan. After all, we are the organizer, as long as the fans and audience can feel that the ticket price is worth it. I'll compile the track list first, and then I'll tell you after calculating the time. When Kurosawa Hikaru heard this, he thought about it and said, the first piano concert is also the first official performance at 0 hour, so it must be carefully considered. It's best to make a decision as soon as possible. Under normal circumstances, live performances such as concerts, stage plays, and plays need to be preheated half a month in advance, or even promoted for a month. Even if we start promoting today, it will be at most 1 week in advance, which is relatively late. By the way, we also need to promote the concert. I will draw up a plan later and start promoting it today, and then I will promote it through the new MV. Igarashi Runa reminded him, and then realized that he had a lot to do. She didn't need to worry about this kind of publicity in the past. After all, Fantasy Office has a clear division of labor, with various departments and experienced teams. She mainly runs business outside, holding the information of her artists, contacting and communicating with various brands, running announcements together, and further helping the artists on site. Don't worry, I can give you the set list on Thursday. Seeing that she was getting more and more anxious as she talked, even a little annoyed, as if she was blaming herself for why she only remembered it now, Kurosawa Hikaru comforted her. After all, maybe he was affected by the feeling of being anxious. He thought about his arrangements for this week, and suddenly found that he had more things to do than usual, and it was quite difficult to allocate his time well. For now, the to-do list includes meeting with advertisers to discuss matters, piano music scores, concert repertoire, and going on a date with Yuki and Mirai at the beach. There are also new MVs and new songs to be released, and they will probably have to wait for the premiere results together at the agency. Even more, if you think about it in detail, he hasn't bought Chizuru's exclusive slippers yet. And his date with Mirai, through the revelation of the mission objectives, Mirai seems to want to watch the fireworks, so he must be fully prepared. Okay, the reception is complete, I'll take a look at the MV first. At this time, Igarashi Runa successfully received the file. Take your time to read it. Although he was aware of various things to do, Kurosawa Hikaru still remained calm and tried not to rush himself. After that, Igarashi Runa put his phone aside, stood up, and left. Not long after, she came back, and she appeared on the screen again, first wearing a pair of headphones, and then started to watch. The piano piece Adeline by the Water is 2 minutes and 38 seconds long, not too long or too short. But even with such a specific time, when people are waiting idly, even 1 minute will feel long. With so much time, nothing can be done, and Kurosawa Hikari can only wait. Through the video chat camera, he can only see the side face of Igarashi Runa wearing headphones and her reaction to watching the MV. It seems that she is very satisfied. Looking at her side face, seeing her right eye staring at things outside the camera, suddenly widening, and then suddenly shrinking, as if attracted to it, serious and fascinated, Kurosawa Hikari's mouth corners can't help but curl up and arc. I have to say that Miss Runa is really charming. A person's charm is not only determined by the superficial appearance, but in all aspects. Although she has short hair that is capable and handsome, her beautiful and delicate facial features are gentle and charming, perhaps because of her oval face. Handsome and beautiful, gentle and considerate, sexy and mature, infinitely tolerant, serious and smart at work, virtuous and hard-working big sister at home, this is the feeling she gives people. Even though there are many beauties around him, whether it is Xiaoyuki, Mirai, or Chizuru, his aesthetic threshold is raised very high, but he still thinks Miss Runa is a great beauty. In the final analysis, it is because she is an excellent woman who shines from the inside out. Kurosawa, your editing is too good, isn't it? Not long after, Igarashi Runa finished watching the video, turned around, and looked unbelievable. Although her audio and video editing level is very low, that is, the level of cutting out the tidbits, but as a gold medal agent, she has been in the industry for many years and has a strong appreciation of MV. This MV obviously has no lyrics and lines, but under the lens language and the performance of the model, it seems to tell a story. When a song has a picture and performance that matches it, it will burst out with the power of 1 add 1 greater than 2. How is it, are you satisfied? Seeing others' exclamation will make people feel satisfied, and so does Kurosawa Hikaru, who smiled knowingly. Satisfied, very satisfied. This MV will definitely be a big hit. When will we release the video? Igarashi Runa nodded frantically. Now she had an extremely strong premonition. You think about it? I don't really understand the timing of publicity. Saturday, midnight. Okay, I haven't had lunch yet, let's talk about this first. After deciding on this matter, Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at the time in the lower right corner of the computer screen and found that the time was 13:48, so he said. You haven't had lunch yet? Then go quickly, I'll go and meet Miss Ichinos. Igarashi Runa was stunned when she heard this, and realized that he was probably busy all morning, so she urged him. After waving goodbye to her, the video call officially ended. Done. Putting down the phone, Kurosawa Hikaru sat back in the chair and couldn't help stretching. He woke up early in the morning and started editing at 7:30. He was busy all morning and finally solved the MV issue. Although there are still a few days before the release of the MV, he has already done everything he can do about this new MV, including yesterday's shooting, today's editing, and even the piano music he recorded before that. Next, he just needs to wait for Miss Runa to promote and officially upload this new MV. After solving this problem, Kurosawa Hikaru closed his laptop, went to the bathroom again, and went out. Because he was alone at home, he planned to go out and deal with things like eating casually, without being too particular. Tokyo's Shibuya district, as one of the 23 districts, is known as the Street of Young People and is very lively 365 days a year. I'm going to buy shoes after dinner. Can I meet Miki-sensei while buying shoes? Walking out of Shibuya Station, Kurosawa Hikaru looked around and saw a lot of people. He suddenly muttered to himself. It should be said that he and Miki Shiraha seem to have a special fate. So far, he has met Miki-sensei 4 times. Maybe this number seems small, but in a city as big as Tokyo, being able to meet 4 times is actually a lot. In this world, there are countless couples who, after breaking up, are separated from each other and never see each other again. Even if they are in the same city, it is very common for them to never see each other for a lifetime without either party deliberately creating opportunities. Maybe he thought so, but Kurosawa Hikaru quickly took steps to avoid leaving Shibuya and going somewhere else to buy shoes and food just because of this situation. Walking alone on the streets of Shibuya, aware of the possibility of encountering him by chance, Kurosawa Hikaru's eyes couldn't help but look around at everything around him. He has very conflicting feelings and opinions about Miki-senpai. Kurosawa Hikaru was afraid of meeting her because he knew very well how hurtful the message he sent that day, in order to make Miki Bayu give up, and he didn't know how to face it. Kurosawa Hikaru wanted to meet her by chance because he wanted to see how Miki Shiraha was doing now and also wanted to see that special fate again. Walking through the streets of Shibuya, although I deliberately want to pursue it, it is difficult to encounter acquaintances in the vast sea of people. Well, what's the point of looking for her now? Kurosawa Hikaru walked for a long time before he realized what he was doing. He realized that he was worrying about gains and losses, and he couldn't help but sigh. Suppressing his mood, he randomly picked a shop on the roadside and went in to eat. Perhaps because he still didn't want to give up, he subconsciously found a seat by the window where he could see the street. When a man is alone, he always eats casually. Only when he is with his girlfriend, will he deliberately eat more expensive, exquisite, delicious dishes. Kurosawa Hikaru was like this. He casually ordered a piece of soba noodles that were easy to digest, and soon waited for the waiter to bring it to him. Suck. Although soba noodles are not ramen, in Nihon, it is a etiquette to make noise when eating noodles. Kurosawa Hikaru was not polite and bowed his head to eat noodles openly. After eating a few mouthfuls like this, the system's voice suddenly sounded in Kurosawa Hikaru's ears. Mission error. Hearing these words, Kurosawa Hikaru, who was eating noodles quietly, couldn't help but be stunned, and a huge question mark appeared in his heart. What's the situation? He was just eating noodles, how could the mission go wrong? However, the system ignored his surprise and just said without emotion. The mission is being revised. Mission correction successful. As these words rang out, several lines of words appeared in front of Kurosawa Hikaru's eyes. Date mission, a trip to the skating rink with Miki Shiraha. Mission goal, meet at the skating rink, let her hold your hand and skate together, surprise her, let her kiss your face. Mission period, 1 month, remaining time, 11 days, 9 hours, 37 minutes and 48 seconds. Mission funds, entry-level skating, entry-level dance ballet, experience card. Mission rewards, entry-level skating, entry-level dance ballet, permanent. Seeing this date mission, Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned, suddenly realized something, and raised his eyes. As soon as he raised his eyes, he found outside the glass window wall, a girl with white hair like snow, wearing a white dress, with a slender figure and a bag in her hand, looking at him with complicated eyes. Her complex eyes seemed to contain countless emotions that were difficult to describe. Miki Shireu. Seeing this girl's appearance, Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned and extremely surprised. Although when he came to Shibuya, he vaguely felt that there was a special fate between him and Miki Shireu, and they would always meet by chance. But when things actually happened, it still made people feel caught off guard. As their eyes met, Miki Baiha, who was walking on the sidewalk outside the window, suddenly came back to his senses and took a step back, as if he suddenly reacted. Immediately afterwards, Miki Baiha bent down and bowed deeply to him. This action seemed to be an apology. Then he stood up straight, turned around and walked away quickly. Wait a moment. Seeing this scene, Kurosawa Hikaru came to his senses and subconsciously wanted to stop her. Because he didn't look back after shouting, Kurosawa put down his chopsticks, stood up and chased after him. Guest, I'm very sorry, you haven't paid yet. However, when he ran to the door of the store, the clerk stopped him with his hand. Here you go, no need to look for it. When Kurosawa Hikaru heard this, he took out his wallet, took out 1,000 yuan denomination and handed it to him, then turned sideways and walked out of the store. However, when he walked out of the store, based on his memory and impression, he ran to the sidewalk facing his seat and looked around. The white silhouette was already far away. She's running, she's avoiding me. Seeing this scene, Kurosawa Hikaru thought of Miki Shiraha's apology-like bow just now, and his footsteps seemed to have taken root, making him unable to keep up. The mission went wrong, and this was the first time he encountered this situation. But compared to this unexpected situation, the mission correction, and the reappearance of the date mission, he was even more stunned. What does that mean? Mickey Bayu was deeply hurt by him. After she gave up, just meeting him again, did her feelings rekindle uncontrollably. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 380. Sanmu Bayu did run away, not just running, but running away. Shuttled through the streets full of pedestrians, her snow-white long hair was flying, and she was fleeing from this place of trouble at a very fast speed, not daring to stop for a moment. Along the way, many people looked at her, with strange expressions on their faces, and followed the way she came. Because this beautiful woman with super high appearance, her eager footsteps, and her panic-stricken face, seemed to be running away from something terrible. However, people only took a second look, then retracted their sight and continued their life trajectory. In fact, everyone can live boldly. Even if a person has a beautiful appearance, stands out from the crowd, can attract many eyes, and has a high rate of turning back, but so what, that's all. But in this life, people will meet countless people, at least 99% of them are just passing by. Just like this moment, Mickey Bayu's appearance and departure were just a blink of an eye. Even if someone was attracted by her beauty and followed her, no one would follow her because there were other things to do. After running for an unknown period of time, Mickey Bayu stopped in an alley between buildings and leaned against the wall, panting a little. Her breathing was very disordered. As a professional figure skater, it shouldn't be like this for such a short distance. However, a person's body organs will change with emotions, and the panic of running away made her breathing and heartbeat very fast. Why did I meet Senior Kurosawa again? With his back against the wall, Mickey Bayu didn't have time to think about whether the wall was clean or not, but couldn't help thinking. Fate, like the entangled silk thread of fate, connects people invisibly. It is an illusory, but romantic concept. For liberal arts students, especially those who like to read various literary novels and operas, they attach great importance to the terms such as fate, and destiny. It was just a sudden impulse. I decided to go shopping, bask in the sun, and change my mood, but I ended up meeting him. If it was just one time, it would be fine, but the continuous encounters made people wonder if it was some kind of special fate. Why is he eating noodles alone? Could it be that his girlfriend just went to the bathroom? I couldn't help staring at him just now. Wouldn't he be angry? I clearly made up my mind not to think about him anymore, but it turned out to be like this. Mickey Bayu thought about what happened just now, squatted down with her hands covering her face, feeling very upset. Since she received that message last time, she realized why Senior Kurosawa was avoiding her. It's not to avoid suspicion for his girlfriend, it's because she is too out of control. Whenever she meets Senior Kurosawa, her eyes will be attracted unconsciously. Thinking of staring at him just now and being discovered again, Mickey Bayu felt very uncomfortable and hummed. Just as she was immersed in the world of annoyance, she squatted down and covered her face, and suddenly saw a pair of shoes stopped in front of her. This person was not passing by, but facing her, as if he was looking for her. Is it possible that I have run so far, and Senior Kurosawa has caught up with me? Mickey Bayu saw the pair of men's shoes stopped in front of her through the gap between her fingers. When she came to her senses, a thought suddenly popped up in her mind. She couldn't tell how far she had just run, but it was definitely very far, because she was exhausted. But even if it was so far, did he still catch up with her? As this thought emerged, she wanted to look up and see the face of this person, whether it was Senior Kurosawa, but she didn't have the courage. "Little sister, are you worried?" Just as she was hesitating, a strange young man's voice sounded. "Could it be that you have broken up? Have you been dumped?" Then, a voice sounded next to him. The streets of various prosperous districts in Neon are always full of pickup scenes. especially at night, when a girl acts alone, she will definitely be targeted by men. Maybe it's more than 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but there are still such cases. Isn't it him? Hearing this conversation, San Muabayu's somewhat excited and expectant mind was suddenly poured with a bucket of cold water. That's right, he hates me so much. The next moment, San Muabayu raised her head and faced reality. I didn't know when, 2 young men appeared beside her. One was wearing a black vest and overalls, looking unruly, with tan skin and thick arms. The other was wearing a plaid shirt with trousers and a pair of glasses, but he was not gentle at all, but looked sloppy. Looking up and seeing their faces, San Muabayu didn't say anything, and didn't want to make any comments. She just took a deep breath, stood up and planned to leave. Wait. But before she took 2 steps, the man with glasses blocked her way. As he forcibly blocked her, he saw San Muabayu's appearance and his eyes lit up. They passed by this alley and suddenly saw a petite girl with white skin squatting by the wall. After observing her for a while, he immediately approached her to chat with her. But after the girl raised her head, he realized that she was too good. Although white skin can hide all ugliness, girls usually don't look ugly as long as their skin is white enough. But this girl, let alone being ugly, is simply too beautiful. It's a kind of luck to meet such a beautiful girl. How can I let her go easily? Little sister, you don't look very happy, why don't you go eat something with us? The workman in a vest also had the same feeling and invited. Blocked by them one after another, San Muabayu didn't say anything, but just moved his feet and wanted to pass by. This alley is quite spacious, enough for 3 people to walk side by side. Don't rush to leave, we have no ill intentions, we just saw that you looked very sad just now, and we want to know what happened to you. However, as she moved left and right, the man with glasses followed closely and comforted her. Please move aside, if you don't move aside, I will shout. Seeing that they were unwilling to let go, San Muabayu glanced at the street a few meters away, and was bold enough to warn. It was still broad daylight, and if she shouted loudly, many people would definitely notice the situation here. You just shouted? What did you want to shout? Are you shouting for help? Seeing her polite and weak warning, the man with glasses was immediately amused and asked with a smile. Wait, you were not threatening us just now, were you? The man with glasses, who was still laughing in the last second, changed his tone in the next second. His face suddenly became gloomy, and his tone and eyes became fierce. I didn't threaten you, I just wanted to leave. This moody performance immediately scared San Muabayu, his face turned pale, and he hurriedly shook his head to deny it. Originally, she was blocked by 2 big men and her way out and retreat, so she was more afraid in her heart, but the man in front of her was still moody, which was even more terrifying. I know you want to leave, but didn't I tell you to wait? Can't you wait until I finish talking before leaving? Seeing her frightened reaction, the man with glasses curled his lips and said fiercely. Then what do you want to say? Muabayu, who had been raised by others since childhood, had never encountered such an unreasonable villain. Seeing his angry look, he was immediately stunned and asked weakly. It's not convenient to talk here, let's go to another place to talk. The man with glasses saw her weak reaction, raised his right index finger, gently pushed his glasses, and said firmly. Okay. Faced with his orders and requests, Muabayu nodded obediently. Seeing her nod, the man with glasses looked at his friend and smiled triumphantly. It's too easy to deal with such a good girl. As long as you are a little fierce, they will be scared out of their wits and have no courage to resist. For girls like this, as long as they are taken to a remote and deserted place, they will be at their mercy. Let's go. After succeeding in chatting up, the man with glasses shook his head with a strong attitude, and then walked towards his friend, motioning her to follow. Seeing that he finally made way, when he passed by, San Muabayu moved her feet and ran directly to the street a few meters away. As long as she ran outside, with so many people watching, these two people would not dare to bother her. Although people cannot be judged by appearance, after the contact just now, she already knew that these two guys were definitely not good people, so how could she go with them? However, just as she took a step to escape, her arm was suddenly grabbed. San Muabayu, who had just taken a step to run, was directly dragged by him, and her body lost balance. She staggered and almost fell down. There was no way to get rid of this unceremonious force. "Are you looking for death?" The man with glasses, who had been prepared for a long time, grabbed her forcibly and said harshly, "You must call for help, this man is a lunatic." San Muabayu, who almost fell, didn't care about the pain of his arm being pulled, and a thought came to his mind. When a girl is in danger, she only has the option of asking for help, except running away. As for direct confrontation, it is undoubtedly an egg hitting a stone, seeking death. Maybe she is lucky and has never encountered bad people, but this does not mean that she does not know how to deal with such a situation. However, before she could shout for help, a suppressed and angry voice suddenly sounded. "I would like to ask you about this sentence." Hearing this voice, San Muabayu, who was about to shout for help, felt a jolt in her heart and looked up subconsciously. "I saw a familiar figure standing at the entrance of the alley a few meters away." The man had black hair and black eyes, handsome features, tall and slender figure, wearing a white shirt and slim black pants, and fair skin. The person who came was Kurosawa Mitsuru. Although he did not know how to face San Muabayu, he still followed her out of concern for her condition. Maybe Miki Shiraha started early, but on land, her pace and speed only gave her a short lead, which was meaningless to Kurosawa Hikaru. "Kurosawa senpai? Did he catch up?" Seeing this, Miki Shiraha couldn't help but feel surprised and stunned. "It has nothing to do with you, you'd better not get yourself into trouble." The man with glasses looked up at the man at the alley, his face gloomy and ferocious. At the same time, the man in overalls also took a step forward to deter. Under normal circumstances, if you encounter two evil people with bad faces and arrogant attitudes, passers-by usually dare not meddle in other people's business, so as not to get into trouble. Before I get angry, you kneel down and kowtow to admit your mistakes, and if you get out of here quickly, I can pretend that nothing happened. However, let alone two people, even if there were 10 people, Kurosawa Hikaru was not afraid, and his attitude was even more arrogant than theirs, and he walked over step by step. "Go beat him up." The man with glasses saw that he had to meddle in other people's business, and immediately gave his brother a look. "Humph." The man in work clothes heard this, snorted coldly, and stepped forward decisively. "Help, life." Hearing this, Miki Bayu came back to his senses, realized that Senior Kurosawa might be beaten, and opened his mouth to shout for help. However, her shouting was very strange. From high to low, the amplitude of the change was so large, like a roller coaster, suddenly falling from the sky to the bottom of the valley. SHH. This is because she saw Kurosawa Hikaru's action, which was to put his index finger in front of his mouth to silence her, as if to tell her not to make a sound. "Boy, you still have time to get out now, otherwise, I'll let you taste a fist as big as your head." The burly and strong man in work clothes stepped forward, rubbing his hands and threatening fiercely. But before he finished his threatening words, they suddenly stopped. Bang! Because his burly body was like being hit by a speeding train, and he flew out horizontally and hit the side wall, making a dull impact sound. Bang! The next moment, his body slid down from the wall and fell directly to the ground, unable to get up again. The initiator of all this was Kurosawa Hikaru. His body tilted slightly and turned around, with his left foot raised high in the air. He kicked the guy away. Seeing this scene, The man with glasses was not able to see the collision, but he was aware of it through the current situation, and he couldn't help but be shocked and shocked. His friend, although not a gangster, nor a professional fighter, is a car mechanic. In addition, he is naturally burly and has never lost in a fight with others. Even so, his friend couldn't even fight a single move in front of this man and was knocked to the ground. What's going on? Did this guy practice it? Kurosawa Hikaru kicked the workman with a high side kick, put his foot down and continued to walk forward step by step. He didn't say anything, his expression was gloomy and angry, and his dark eyes were cold to the bone. Faced with such a terrible look, the man with glasses came back to his senses from his astonishment, realizing that he would definitely teach him a lesson, and couldn't help but feel afraid. Help, ah! The man with glasses was scared when he saw the other party getting closer and closer. He let go of Mickey Bayu's arm, turned around and ran away, and shouted loudly, trying to stop what was going to happen next by asking for help. However, when he asked for help, he also let out a hysterical cry of pain. Originally, because he had Mickey Bayu as a hostage, Kurosawa Mitsuru was still taking conservative actions, intending to get closer before attacking. But when he let go of the hostage, Kurosawa Mitsuru had no scruples, and directly chased forward with a few big steps and grabbed his wrist. Kurosawa Mitsuru's move was to raise the wrist and grab it back, which is a move of the muscle-breaking hand. It uses the principle of leverage to reverse the weakness of the joints, and can achieve the effect of capturing the enemy with one grab. I gave you advice just now, but you didn't listen carefully. Now it's too late for you to do anything. Faced with his howl of pain, Kurosawa Mitsuru didn't intend to let him go easily. However, the wrist-lifting move was too painful. The man with glasses had no intention to listen to what he said. He bent over and struggled frantically, but the more he struggled, the more painful it was, and he screamed like a pig being slaughtered. Because his strength in front of Kurosawa Mitsuru was like a child facing an adult, they were not at the same level at all. Did he hurt you just now? What are you going to do with him? After capturing the enemy, Kurosawa Mitsuru slightly tilted his head and looked at Miki Shiraha behind him. In fact, he caught up with her a long time ago, but after catching up, he found that she was squatting in the alley. He didn't know how to talk to her, so he could only watch at the entrance of the alley. While he was watching, the two guys came from the other side and started to chat. He didn't want to appear at the critical moment, but he thought Miki Shiraha might have a way to deal with it. After all, it was in broad daylight and in the bustling Shibuya district, so there would be no accidents. As a result, he still thought too well of the two guys who chatted with him. When Miki Bayu heard this question, he looked at the workwear man on the ground, and then at the glasses man who had no power to fight back in front of Senior Kurosawa, without saying a word. Hysterical, the pain as if a bone was broken made the glasses man more and more crazy. Kurosawa Hikaru was not anxious about this struggle, but patiently waited for Miki Bayu to think it through. While waiting, his hand was like a clamp, tightly grasping the glasses man's hand. I was wrong, I know I was wrong, big brother, my hand is going to break, help me. As time went by, the glasses man cried and his body kept bending until he knelt on the ground, giving up all his dignity and begging for mercy. Okay. It lasted for a full 20 seconds, and Miki Bayu noticed that the people outside the alley, hearing the movement, were gathering and looking here one after another, and then he spoke. All right. Hearing this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but be stunned. Soon, he reacted. Miki Bayu's silence was not because she had not thought about how to deal with this man with glasses. I am afraid that in her opinion, the fact that the man with glasses was captured like this and kept howling in pain was already a punishment. Thinking of this, Kurosawa Hikaru finally let go of his hand. Is this enough? Are you done venting your anger? Kurosawa Hikaru looked back at her. Mickey Bio nodded obediently. Okay, let's go. Kurosawa Hikaru raised his eyes and glanced at the alley not far away, and then glanced down at the man with glasses who was kneeling in front of him, holding his right hand with his left hand and panting. Although he felt pity, he gave up the thought. Originally, he wanted to give this man with glasses a slap in the face and send him to the hospital to lie down for a long time to remember, but the schoolgirl who was the victim had lost his temper. If he continued to attack, he would do something about it. It's too much. Are we just going to leave like this? Why don't we call the police and explain the situation clearly, otherwise they will come back to bite you later and it will be very troublesome. After hearing this statement, Mickey Bio was a little stunned and suggested, just leave. If you have any trouble, I can solve it. Kurosawa Hikaru naturally knew that if he left, there might be subsequent troubles, but compared to this, when he saw someone taking out a mobile phone and pointing it at the side, he turned slightly sideways to avoid being photographed and set his face. Now, even with the name Kurosawa Hikaru, he is somewhat famous. After all, he is a Kyoto genius who has appeared in magazines. He will only become more famous in the future. It would definitely be more troublesome if he was photographed fighting with someone on the street. After all, as strong as Shinichi is, the most he can do is restrict reporters from major TV stations. As for the behavior of passers-by breaking news on the internet, it is more difficult to curb. Immediately, they left one after another, but not from the nearest alley, but to the other side. Unlike the alley entrance here, the alley entrance on the other side was quite far away, and I didn't notice the situation here at all. On the road, the horns of vehicles kept honking, and there were noisy and excited voices. The two walked in tandem. After a long distance, Kurosawa Hikaru hesitated and slowed down, waiting for her to catch up. Sorry. Sorry. As they walked side by side, the two people spoke at the same time. I shouldn't have sent you that kind of message before, why do you have to apologize? I was the one who was wrong. Kurosawa explained his reasons first and then felt confused. He couldn't figure it out before, why Mickey Bio said sorry instead of being angry after he apologized, or that he couldn't read it back. I shouldn't have stared at you, causing trouble for you and your girlfriend. Facing his confusion, Mickey Bio lowered his head, feeling very embarrassed and guilty. Although she could go and leave whenever she wanted in a public place like the skating rink, it was wrong for her to stare closely at Kurosawa-senpai's behavior. You know, sight and glances can also cause trouble and make people feel offended. As a result, she stared at people without restraint, without even considering Kurosawa-senpai's feelings. All right. In response to this statement, Kurosawa Hikaru paused and was speechless. In fact, Mickey Bio's loving eyes and behavior of staring at him did cause trouble to him at the time. If Yamamoto Daiki and the people from the Spice Girls had noticed Miki Shiraha, the figure skating genius, and stared at him with love, it would have been very troublesome. But in this matter, I am the wrong person, I'm sorry. Although he couldn't refute it, after thinking about it, Kurosawa Hikaru turned his head slightly and looked at her, feeling very guilty. What he did at that time went too far, he unilaterally wanted to make Mickey Bio give up, so he did not hesitate to take extreme and unreasonable actions. After calming down and thinking about it afterwards, his behavior at that time was no less than depriving Mickey Bio of the right to like him, which was too arrogant. Kurosawa-senpai, you are right. I was too rude. If I hadn't been staring at you, you wouldn't have sent that message. Apologizing, Mickey Bio shook his head and denied. What happened that day at the skating rink was ultimately caused by her wishful thinking. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 381. After apologizing to each other, the two walked side by side, but aimlessly. The atmosphere between the two of them was a bit stiff, and they didn't know how to continue the topic. In the process of getting along with others, there is actually not so much right or wrong, only suitability. Whether it's a couple or friends, it's the same. Because in this world, no one can be perfect. Is your hand okay? Kurosawa looked sideways at her, noticed the obvious fingerprints on her snow-white forearm, and asked. Should it be said that her skin is too delicate and can be broken by blows, or that the man with glasses just grabbed it too hard? Fine. After hearing this, Mickey Bio lowered his head and noticed the handprints on his arms, shaking his head slightly. This answer brought the topic to an end again. Seeing that she was okay, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but care more. After all, his relationship with Mickey Bio was at best that of a senior and a junior schoolmate. They were not even friends. They only met a few times by chance. Then, the two people continued walking. For Kurosawa Hikaru, this journey was a bit grueling. Normally, when he gets along with girls, the atmosphere should not be like this, and he can easily open up the topic. But Mickey Bio's situation is special. He has hurt her and let down other people's good intentions. Emotionally, he felt guilty for this schoolgirl. For Mickey Bio, this journey makes people feel lucky. Kurosawa-senpai, thank you. If you hadn't come here just now, I don't know what I would have done. After walking like this for a while, Mickey Bio took the initiative to speak and looked at him gratefully. The situation just now was really dangerous, and she was frightened, because those two men were different from the people who tried to strike up a conversation on the roadside before, and they were not so easily dismissed and perfunctory. The next time you encounter this situation, the moment someone blocks your path, it's time to call for help. And be careful in the future and don't run into uninhabited places. Kurosawa Hikaru heard her thank you, touched the back of her neck with his hand, and said. In fact, he felt that even if he didn't follow him this time, this schoolgirl would probably not be in danger. After all, it was around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, in broad daylight, and it was still in a bustling neighborhood like Shibuya, not some remote and uninhabited place. As long as she shouts for help, anyone who sees her will be able to escape unscathed. However, he couldn't help but stand up at that time. On the one hand, he knew that he had the ability to save people, and on the other hand, he saw Mickey Bio's expression of pain from being dragged. I understand, Kurosawa-senpai, can I ask you a question? Mickey Bio remembered this lesson, nodded obediently, and looked up at him. Ken. Why did you appear in that alley? Because I want to apologize to you, although I said it on the phone. I think it's better to apologize in person for this reason. Kurosawa Hikaru was not afraid to speak out. At that time, he discovered that Mickey Bio was running away. He had roots under his feet and did not dare to catch up. But he thought about missing this opportunity and not knowing when the next meeting would be, so he made up his mind to follow him and have a look. Then you catch up with her, what will you do with your girlfriend? Why did you mention her suddenly? Because aren't you eating noodles with your girlfriend? No, I'm eating noodles there alone, and I'm going to work part-time later. After receiving the answer, Kurosawa Hikaru waved his hand and denied. Are you going to play the piano? Upon hearing about part-time job, Mickey Bio's beautiful eyes suddenly widened and she asked in a low voice. In addition to playing the piano, I have other part-time jobs. Seeing her expression, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but look at her twice before explaining. I have to say that this schoolgirl is very well behaved, just like Xiao Yuki. Having said that, their good behavior is not the same type. Little Yuki is lively and cheerful, full of energy, beaming with joy, considerate of others, always smiling, and as well behaved as a golden retriever. As for this schoolgirl, she is innocent and well behaved, like a flower in a greenhouse. Oh. When Mickey Bio heard him talking about other part-time jobs, he hesitated for a few seconds, but still didn't ask, just nodded. When others answer questions with reservations, it is not appropriate to ask further questions. What are you doing in Shibuya? Going to Yodobashi's camera store. Seeing that she had no doubts, Kurosawa Hikaru asked after thinking about it. No, I plan to buy shoes today. When Mikibayu heard this, he wrung his hands together and shook his head slightly. Ever since she ran into Kurosawa-senpai in a camera store last time, only to find that he was avoiding her, she has never been to that store again. As a result, she never expected that even if she avoided the camera store, she would still encounter Kurosawa-senpai. Want to buy skates? Kurosawa realized that she wanted to buy shoes, was stunned for a moment, and then asked. If it is skates, you must go to a specialized store to buy them. Skates are not something that can be found in just any shoe store. My skates are still in good condition. I don't need to replace them with new ones. I plan to buy shoes for daily use. It can't be such a coincidence, right? Hearing this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at her, feeling surprised. The purpose of his visit to Shibuya this time was not to eat at all, but to buy a pair of exclusive slippers for both Chizuru and Xiaoyuki. There is obviously no agreement, but the purpose is the same. Could it be that, even if he didn't meet the schoolgirl by chance when he was eating noodles, he would still bump into her when he was buying shoes? It shouldn't be. As this thought arose, Kurosawa Hikaru pressed it directly. Even though they had met each other by chance many times and seemed to have a special fate, it would be too outrageous to do what he thought. If this is the case, it seems as if they are destined to meet. I have something else to do, so I'll come here first this time, and you go buy some shoes. Putting aside his whimsical thoughts, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at the surrounding environment, which became increasingly unfamiliar as he walked. After thinking about it, he made up his mind. He has too many things to do and doesn't have enough time to hang out with her. Good. Mikibayu found out that he was leaving, and was not surprised, nor did he try to stay. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. After saying goodbye to each other, Kurosawa Hikaru turned around and walked back the way he came. The way he came was closer to the station, which was more convenient. He planned to find a store to eat something to fill his stomach, buy some shoes, go home, and then work part-time as a tutor. After just walking a few steps, even though he was on the street and there was a lot of people, Kurosawa Hikaru still vaguely felt the movement behind him and couldn't help but look back. I'll go that way too, there's a shoe store there that I often go to, and it's also close to the station. Mikibayu followed him and explained with a little embarrassment when he turned around. Realizing her situation, Kurosawa Hikaru nodded and walked a few steps ahead. The two people walked one behind the other, keeping their distance. However, this invisible journey is destined to have an end. Because Kurosawa Hikaru planned to find a store to eat, while Miki Shiraba's destination was to buy shoes. After walking for a while, Kurosawa Hikaru walked into the restaurant he just saw. Let's try this restaurant next time. Mikibayu, who was walking behind, turned his head and glanced at the sign and store appearance when passing by the entrance of the restaurant. He remembered it in his heart and never stopped. She didn't dare to stay here, otherwise, Kurosawa-senpai would think she was following her, which would be bad. I'm full now. Not long after, Kurosawa Hikaru walked out of the restaurant, feeling completely comfortable. Perhaps the physical fitness has been strengthened by many skills, but food is the most important thing for people. No matter how strong you are or how many fists and kicks you are good at, you will still be hungry when you should be. When he came to the street, Kurosawa Hikaru looked around and started walking based on his impression. Along the way, he was also looking around, looking for shoe stores. There are many shops in Shibuya district, whether they are clothing stores or shoe stores, they are all very common, but he does not have time to visit them one by one. With his personal aesthetic understanding, he can roughly feel what the style of this shoe store is just by looking at the shoes in the store window. After walking like this for a while, Kurosawa Hikaru locked onto a shoe store called Zuman whose window display looked pretty good. Is it possible that I can meet her again? Should I change the store? Arriving at the store, Kurosawa Hikaru was about to go in, but suddenly he thought of a possibility. I don't believe it. Maybe there was a vague feeling, but Kurosawa Hikaru didn't believe in evil and walked in directly. He really couldn't believe that he and Miki Bayu were so destined. You know, he just had lunch and spent a total of 20 minutes. Plus choosing a store, it was almost half an hour. Although we were still in Shibuya, we were also shopping for shoes, but we had missed each other for such a long time, so there was no way we could meet them. Welcome, what style of shoes do you want to buy? As he walked into the store, he was immediately greeted by a female clerk. Perhaps this store mainly sells women's shoes, and its mainstream customers are young women. However, male customers are rare, but that doesn't mean there are none. I'm going to buy some slippers. When men buy things, they pay attention to efficiency and decisiveness, and Kurosawa Hikaru is no exception, and his purpose is directly stated. Want to buy slippers? Please come with me. After hearing the purpose, the female clerk repeated it to show that she had heard the need clearly, and then invited someone to lead the way. In Neon, all walks of life pay attention to a service spirit, which is the spirit of service. That's right, warm service like this is very common. Neon stores are usually very small, especially in Tokyo. Even if land is not as valuable as Ginza, the rent in other districts is still very high. Kurosawa Hikaru followed her footsteps and walked deeper into the store. When a familiar figure rushed into his eyes, he was stunned. In front of the rows of cabinets with all kinds of shoes, Miki Bayu was sitting on a small stool, trying on a pair of dad shoes with the help of the female clerk. She was sitting with her head bowed and looking at the shoes. Her soft and beautiful white hair was hanging down, and her profile was extremely beautiful with skin that could be broken. Is it really such a coincidence? Kurosawa Hikaru blinked and looked at it several times. He felt numb when he realized that it was really Miki Shiryu and it was not his imagination. He picked a shoe store at random, and it turned out to be the shoe store that Miki Bayu often visited. This was too outrageous. Is it because of similar aesthetics? Or is it some other reason? Could it be that the system is playing tricks on him? At the same time, Miki Shiryu, who was trying on shoes, vaguely felt a line of sight and couldn't help but look back. Senior Kurosawa. At this glance, Miki Shiryu was also extremely surprised. What's going on? Didn't Senior Kurosawa go to lunch just now? He has to go to a part-time job later, so why is he here? Hi. When their eyes met, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't get away with it, so he simply raised his hand and greeted him frankly. Hi. Miki Shiryu was a little at a loss, but still responded. I plan to buy slippers for my girlfriend. Then, in order to avoid being misunderstood as stalking and following, Kurosawa Hikaru also explained the reason clearly. Oh. Hearing this explanation, Miki Shiryu nodded, feeling a little sad and envious. Although she knew that Senior Kurosawa had a girlfriend, and her appearance order was too late, she had no chance at all, but every time she saw him being so nice to his girlfriend, she couldn't help but feel envious. After a simple greeting, because the shoes he bought were of different styles and in different areas, Kurosawa Hikaru walked towards the female clerk who led him. Perhaps slippers are usually cheaper than other shoes. But in this era, even home slippers have many beautiful styles. Kurosawa Hikaru simply glanced around the window and selected 2 slippers. Please give me this pair of shoes, size 36.5. Kurosawa Hikaru pointed to a pair of furry women's slippers and said to the female clerk. When he and Xiaoyuki were taking photos in the hotel before, one of the photos was a loli with twin ponytails, which was matched with this style of furry big slippers. At that time, Xiaoyuki liked this kind of furry slippers very much. Although these slippers are flashy and cannot be worn for bathing, after all, they look ugly when wet and are difficult to dry, but for girls, appearance is more important than practicality. Okay, please wait. Seeing that his purpose of buying shoes was clear, the female clerk saved the effort of introducing him and turned to find new shoes. During this interval, Kurosawa Hikaru's eyes continued to patrol, and he also wanted to buy a pair of slippers for Chizuru. Soon, the female clerk got the new shoes. Please get me size 37 for this pair. When she came back, Kurosawa Hikaru pointed to a pair of slippers and asked. When this was said, the female clerk, who was still holding the shoe box in her hand, was a little surprised. Didn't this customer come to buy slippers for his girlfriend? Why buy two sizes? Is he going to buy a half size larger? Customer, this style of slippers must fit your feet to look good and be more comfortable. Although she thought so, the female clerk looked at the slippers he pointed to, and after thinking about it, she reminded him. Unless it is a pair of slippers specifically designed for cuteness and good looks, otherwise, no matter what kind of shoes, the most important thing is to fit the feet. I know, I want size 37. Kurosawa Hikaru glanced at her, nodded slightly, and said. Of course he knew the importance of shoes that fit the feet, but the problem is that he has 3 girlfriends, and their feet are all different sizes. Seeing that his attitude was very firm, the female clerk naturally couldn't make any more suggestions, so she obeyed and went to get new shoes. Men pay attention to efficiency when buying things. Kurosawa Hikaru liked 2 pairs of shoes at first sight and went to pay for them. Following the clerk to the counter, Kurosawa Hikaru found that Miki Shiraha was still trying on shoes, and seemed to be in distress. She was wearing a pair of dad shoes on her feet, and there were dad shoes with similar designs and high similarity but different colors placed next to her. The so-called dad shoes are usually complicated in design and look clumsy and heavy in appearance. Because they can set off girls' legs very thin, light, and cute, and have the effect of increasing height, they are quite popular among young girls. With the development of the times, the design and color of dad shoes gradually focus on the female group. Unlike high heels, they are comfortable to wear and are favored by many girls. The pair you are wearing now is pretty good. It matches your dressing style. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her situation and mentioned it casually. No wonder he met this schoolgirl in half an hour while eating. It turned out that he had difficulty in making choices. Unlike boys, girls are usually very easy to fall into distress when buying things. Unless they have strong financial resources and can choose to have everything, otherwise, whether buying shoes, bags, or clothes, they will seriously consider it. In fact, the reason why boys hate shopping with their girlfriends is because girls always have this problem when they go shopping for clothes. They even try on and look for a long time, but they are not satisfied and return empty-handed. Okay, I'll take this pair. Hearing this suggestion, Miki Bio looked back at him, then looked down at the pair of old shoes under her feet, the heels against the ground covered with paper, gently swaying her feet, and when the 2 feet collided together, she made up her mind. Speaking of this, a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. For her, Kurosawa Sr.'s suggestion was like helping her choose a pair of shoes. Then I'll help you get the new shoes. Seeing that she finally made up her mind, the female clerk was also as happy as if she had been pardoned. The styles were obviously the same, but there were subtle differences in the design details. As a result, the lady couldn't make a decision. It really made her anxious, but she couldn't push it, so she could only wait patiently. Concerned about the situation here, Kurosawa Hikaru turned around and took a few more glances before officially paying the bill. I have a part-time job later, so I'll leave first. After paying the bill, Kurosawa Hikaru carried 2 bags, said hello and left. At 6 o'clock in the evening, in a luxury apartment in the city center, Sayaka Akai went to make dinner as the time came. Although after meeting the parents, we can chat openly. However, Kurosawa Hikaru and Shifunjin Mirai still maintain their previous tacit understanding and habits. Class is class, and breaks are breaks. Getting along with each other openly is not as interesting as whispering. By the way, what's your foot size? Taking advantage of this opportunity, Kurosawa Hikaru turned the pen in his hand and asked. Why are you asking this suddenly? Do you want to give me shoes? Hearing this initial topic, Sifenjayuan Mirai was a little surprised. That's my plan. I want to buy you a pair of slippers. Kurosawa smiled and admitted frankly. Although I don't know when I will have the opportunity to visit his home in the future, I want to be prepared and take precautions. 37 yards. Sifenjayuan Mirai confirmed his thoughts and was in a good mood, with his feet in slippers dangling under the table. Maybe she has too many clothes, shoes, and bags to wear. But Kurosawa wanted to give her shoes, and she was still looking forward to it. Kurosawa Hikaru was not surprised when she heard this size, because she and Chizuru are both about 1.7 meters tall, so it is normal for them to have the same foot size. How much do the slippers you're wearing now cost? Compared to this, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly thought of something and asked. I forgot, it should be several million, right? Sifenjayuan Mirai looked down at the slippers under the table and responded uncertainly. Kurosawa Hikaru knew that she was a super eldest lady, so he had prepared his expectations, but he was still shocked by the price. Millions of slippers? Is this diamond encrusted? Or will it fly if worn? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but look down under the table to see what kind of slippers they were, which could be worth millions. The place under the desk was dark and out of reach of the light, but the pair of slippers didn't look very good, but the pair of beautiful feet in the slippers in the future, in his opinion, were priceless and priceless. These are custom-made slippers made for me by a famous French designer. Seeing his reaction, Sifenjayuan Mirai was amused and explained with a smile. All right. Realizing the root cause of the high value, Kurosawa didn't know how to complain for a while. In fact, he has never quite understood why the prices of luxury goods can be so outrageous. It's not that he can't afford several million now, but it's absolutely impossible for him to buy a pair of slippers. Agwang, the price doesn't matter, as long as it's something you give me, I like it. Sifenjayuan Mirai saw that he didn't recover for a while, so in order to prevent his enthusiasm from being dampened, he comforted him. As the saying goes, kindness is more important than courtesy. Compared with the price, Kurosawa Hikaru planned to give her something. This thought alone made her very happy. Aha! Kurosawa Bald responded without raising his head. You keep your head down. Are you looking at the slippers or my feet? Seeing that he had refused to raise his head since he lowered his head to look under the table, Sifenjayuan Mirai blushed and couldn't help but ask. Although she knew a lot, it was all theoretical knowledge and no practical experience. That's why she still couldn't resist the behavior of her sweetheart staring at her feet. Of course it's your feet. What's so good about slippers? After his little thought was exposed, Kurosawa Hikaru raised his head and admitted shamelessly. Like it? Seeing that he dared to admit it, Sifenjayuan's future beautiful eyes looked at him and smiled. You are asking knowingly. Ever since he climbed the adult ladder, Kurosawa Hikaru has not been afraid to admit his fetishes. He, Hikaru Kurosawa, is a foot control. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 382. Although things in the world are impermanent, everyone lives a regular and repetitive life for most of their lives, which can be called a peaceful life. Studying and working are two stages of human existence. At night, Kurosawa Hikari returned home after half a day's work. Taking out his mobile phone, he looked at the information accumulated in the afternoon. Igarashi Runa sent 2 messages. I started promoting the new song today, previewed the MV, and scheduled a premiere on YouTube this time. The response to the promotion is quite good. Fans are very curious about what kind of music it will be. Do you want to announce the new song? For example, the new song is Adelina by the Waterside. The sense of anticipation is the most attractive factor, so that's good. After reading it, Kurosawa replied to the message. After settling this matter, he read Yuki-chan's message again. Brother Guang, Miss Igarashi called me and asked me to go to the office. Brother Hikaru, Miss Igarashi said that she wants me to participate in the All Neon Beauty Selection Contest. I need to shape my label and image first. If I can win, there will be many benefits. Brother Guang, after you finish your work, if you are free, can you video chat with me? Unexpectedly, there is quite little information about Xiao Yuki today. Seeing her request, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't hesitate at all and directly sent her a video call application. However, what was different from the past was that the video was not connected instantly, but it took about 20 seconds before it was connected. Brother Guang, good evening. As the connection was successfully connected, Yuki Ichino's face appeared on the phone screen, greeting him with a warm smile as usual. Were you sleeping just now? Kurosawa just glanced at her and found that her eyebrows were more relaxed than usual, and she seemed a bit lazy, as if she hadn't woken up. Ah, because Brother Guang, you won't be free until 11 o'clock. I don't have time to take a nap at noon today, so I took a nap after 8 o'clock. The real situation was revealed at a glance. Yuki Ichino's paused, nodded, and rubbed his eyes in embarrassment. Next time if you feel sleepy, go to bed earlier and don't have to wait for me. Realizing this situation, Kurosawa Hikaru felt a lot of emotion and warned. Xiao Yuki's schedule has been too regular recently. She gets up earlier than when she was at school, usually around 7 a.m., and it is really difficult for her to stay up until 11 o'clock. But I want to talk to Brother Guang. In response to this instruction, Ichino's Yuki obediently nodded in agreement, but couldn't help but say. Seriously, she hasn't seen Brother Guang for 3 days. Although she felt that she was not very clingy and knew not to be too clingy, it had been so long that she felt like her days were like a year. All right. Realizing the reason for her doing this, Kurosawa opened his mouth, unable to teach her a lesson or teach her how to do things. In the final analysis, Xiao Yuki wanted to video chat with him even if he was woken up. The fundamental reason was that he was too busy these days and had no time to accompany her. In the afternoon, even if I don't have much time, I should still meet her. Thinking of the situation in the past few days, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but think secretly. Although he is indeed very busy these days and has nothing to do, but in fact, he can take some time out and find opportunities. In the afternoon, because he thought that he only had less than 2 hours and also had to buy slippers for Chizuru, he still did not contact Xiao Yuki after thinking about it. Even if there is very little time, he can go to the office with Xiao Yuki and talk about the development of work with Miss Runa. Brother Guang, do you know about the All Neon Beauty Selection Competition? Seeing his helpless look, Ichino's Yuki didn't want to upset him, so he directly asked a question and changed the subject. I don't know much about it. Do you know much? Tell me. Hearing this question, Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head and smiled. The beautiful girl selection competition is like this. It is held once a year, and then the preliminaries start in June every year, and the winner is decided on October 10th every year. The rules for participation are girls between 13 and 19 years old, and those who want to get good ranking is not only about looks, but also talent. Seeing that he didn't understand, Ichino's Yuki smiled and introduced him enthusiastically. In terms of looks, my little Yuki is already invincible. What does talent mean? Seeing her energetic look, Kurosawa smiled and asked. Such as singing, dancing, acting, etc. Ms. Igarashi said that if I win the Beauty Girl Championship of the year, I can officially debut as an artist. There will be many benefits. Hearing what he said, Ichino's Yuki replied a little shyly and embarrassedly. What talents do you plan to use to fight? Miss Igarashi plans to sign me up for a dance class and a runway modeling class. Although the time is short, learning some basics will help me compete for a good ranking. Do you want to dance? That's really exciting. I'm just learning some basics. I haven't learned it before, so maybe it's not good enough. It has nothing to do with technique, the key is that you have to dance, which makes me look forward to it. Hee. During the chat, the two people also began to chat about various topics. But the topic was limited, mainly surrounding Xiaoyuki's situation in the past few days, such as study progress and so on. In the final analysis, it was because Xiaoyuki deliberately avoided the question of what Kurosawa Hikaru had been doing these past few days. Speaking of which, I met Miki-san today. Kurosawa Hikaru could vaguely sense her little thoughts. After chatting for a long time, he found a break and suddenly said, "Eh." Hearing this, Ichino's Yuki was immediately shocked. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I went to Shibuya for lunch and did some shopping. Then when I was eating soba noodles against the wall of the store, I suddenly saw Miki Shiraha walking outside. Then what? Faced with his story, Ichino's Yuki was very curious. In this regard, Kurosawa Hikaru explained the situation from beginning to end. For example, he bowed and ran away when he saw him, and was later accosted by evil people, as well as some small talk. However, he did not say anything about the encounter in the shoe store later. Because it was such a coincidence, it seemed like it was a matter of fate with a certain girl, so telling my girlfriend was really not a good decision. She's not angry, and is she still apologizing to you? Does she think it's her fault? Ichino's Yuki was a little embarrassed. Although she didn't say anything, she thought this figure skating genius had a good character. Yes, but the fault for this still lies with me. Very good. Hearing his words, Ichino's Yuki suddenly sighed in relief. Very good. This sudden reaction surprised Kurosawa. Because Brother Guang, your reaction before made me very worried. It was that you obviously hurt others, you were obviously troubled, you knew it was not good, but you still did that. Ichino's Yuki nodded slightly, and immediately saw his confusion and described it. Xiaoyuki, what did you think when you asked me if I didn't want the fourth one? After realizing his state in her eyes that day, Kurosawa Hikaru pondered and asked. In fact, he deliberately mentioned Miki Bayu just to lead the conversation to this point. Although he had some enlightenment through the future, he realized that what his three girlfriends wanted most was specialness, not fair treatment. But he could understand the reason why Chizuru wanted him to find the fourth one, designated as Runa, but he couldn't be sure of Xiaoyuki's feelings. I don't understand why you insist on doing this. Player Miki obviously knows that you have a girlfriend and still likes you. Shouldn't it be a good thing for you? Why do you insist on making her give up? And he chose to do that. Faced with this problem, Ichino's Yuki said after thinking about it carefully. The answer I gave you at that time was that people should be content. You seemed a little disappointed. Why? Kurosawa asked again. It is impossible to find out Xiaoyuki's thoughts from just one question. Facing this question, Ichino's Yuki seemed to be confused. To be honest. Because Brother Guang always thinks about everything alone. Speaking of what happened at that time, Yuki Ichino's looked at him with complicated eyes. Nowadays, what she wants most is not external things like money, but to catch up in Brother Guang's footsteps and move forward side by side with him. The reason why she was disappointed at that time was that she had to face reality, she was not able to stand by his side yet, she could only follow behind him. It is as expected. After receiving this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru found that it was what he thought and nodded. At that time, after she asked that question, she didn't want him to find the fourth one at all, but she wanted to know what he really thought. Really? Seeing his unexpected reaction, Ichi-no's Yuki was very puzzled. Actually, I didn't understand the reason for your expression at the time, but I realized it later. You wanted me to reveal my feelings to you, right? Realizing that she didn't understand, Kurosawa Hikaru used this to confirm while explaining. Right. Ichi-no's Yuki was thoughtful and nodded in confirmation. Xiao Yuki, if you have any questions in the future, I will answer them truthfully. I will also tell you more about my feelings in the future. If I encounter any problems, I will also tell you. After receiving a positive answer, Kurosawa Hikaru immediately promised. Really? Ichi-no's Yuki was a little surprised. Real? Kurosawa Hikaru nodded with determination. Then can I ask you now? Ichi-no's Yuki is eager to try. Certainly. Kurosawa thought for a while and agreed to her. Brother Guang, do you really not want a fourth girlfriend? Finally getting the chance, Yuki Ichi-no's asked. Is it such an important issue from the beginning? As soon as these words came out, Kurosawa Hikaru's expression changed and he smiled bitterly. I have to say that it is really troublesome for my girlfriend to ask such a question. I won't ask any more. Seeing his wry smile, Ichi-no's Yuki immediately changed her mind. It would be too hypocritical to insist that I don't want to. I never knew whether I wanted to or not before, but since I heard Senior Mickey, I have thought about it a lot, and after asking myself, I found that I still think about it. Noticing her withdrawal, Kurosawa Hikaru hesitated and then said. Should he say it or not, he has been coveting Miss Runa ever since he was instigated by Chizuru. Because Miss Runa has a close friendship with him, and the key is her tolerance and gentleness, which attracts him in every aspect. The most important thing is that Runa and Chizuru have a good friendship. The two royal sisters hug each other, and the feeling of being together makes him ready to move. To put it bluntly, there is no man in the world who can refuse the blessing of being together and sleeping together. As expected, Brother Guang, I have something to say to you. Hearing this answer, Ichi-no's Yuki was not surprised, and then his expression suddenly became serious. What words? Discovering that she wanted to remind her before speaking, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but feel a thump in his heart and suddenly felt uneasy. If there is a saying that words can also be used as moves, then Xiao Yuki's words are like amplifying the spell-casting movements before moving. Could it be that it was because he was not satisfied with having 3 girlfriends and wanted to get involved with a fourth one, thus breaking the limit of Xiao Yuki's tolerance? Does she want to break up? If you don't leave, I won't give up. Facing his anxious gaze, Ichi-no's Yuki said word by word. Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her in astonishment. This sentence was so familiar, it was something he had said before. That's what I said, but I may not be able to do this, because if Brother Guang wants to leave me, I think I will definitely stick to you. Facing his shocked expression, Ichi-no's Yuki laughed. Ha ha. Kurosawa Hikaru was stunned and was also made to laugh by her. Brother Guang, I'm telling you this because I hope you won't think about doing anything against your will for me in the future. I will always stay by your side. Thanks. Hearing such a true confession, Kurosawa Hikaru was deeply touched. I have to say, Xiao Yuki is really good. Brother Guang, have you relaxed a lot after apologizing to Mickey? After thanking him, Ichi-no's Yuki did not refuse, but asked to change the subject. It's indeed a lot easier, Kurosawa nodded. A conscientious person will feel guilty after hurting others, especially innocent people. Because of this, he felt a lot more comfortable after apologizing in person. That's good. Seeing his soothing expression, Ichi-no's Yuki felt relieved. Speaking of which, I have to confess something to you. Following the heart-to-heart conversation, Kurosawa Hikari made up his mind after thinking about it. What? I plan to pursue Ms. Runa. After much thought, Kurosawa finally spoke out. Really? When Ichinose heard this confession, her eyes suddenly widened. Why do you look so happy? Kurosawa Hikaru could guess that her expression would change drastically when she heard the news, but he never expected it to be in this direction. Because Miss Igarashi likes you very much, and she is very powerful and beautiful. The key is that she still likes you even though she knows you have 3 girlfriends. How do you know she likes me? Did she tell you? She didn't tell me, but I could see it. When we were in the office together before, no matter what happened, her eyes would always drift towards you involuntarily, as if she cared about you every moment. Reaction: you can't hide the look in someone's eyes. And there's this thing. The next morning, a car parked in front of the apartment. Kurosawa Hikaru first opened the back seat, glanced at the empty back seat, closed the door, and made a special trip to the passenger seat to sit in it. If 2 people are traveling in a car, unless you are taking a taxi, it is best to sit in the passenger seat. Because sitting in the back seat is equivalent to treating the person driving as the driver, which is very impolite. Good morning, Ms. Runa. As he sat down and closed the car door, Kurosawa Hikaru greeted him. This is Ms. Runa's car. There is no fragrance in the car, but there is a faint scent of roses, which may be her body fragrance or the fragrance of shampoo. What good happened? You look so happy. Runa Igarashi, who was uncharacteristically fashionable and sexy, wearing a light blue suit, a white shirt, and a hip-hugging skirt for commuting, teased. Because I can see you early in the morning. Faced with her teasing, Kurosawa Hikaru smiled. As expected of Mr. Playboy, he really knows how to please women. Hearing this, Igarashi Runa's smile froze, and then she rolled her eyes at him complainingly and said scolding. Having said that, her hands were not idle, so she changed gears and started to set off. Feel sorry. Kurosawa Hikaru paused after hearing this, feeling that her tone was a bit sinister. Could it be that she was minding how he suddenly reached out and hugged her waist that day? I don't mean to blame you, but you'd better use your technique on those 17 or 18-year-old girls. I'm an old aunt, so it won't work on me. Noticing that he suddenly turned off the engine, Igarashi Runa realized that she had gone too far and added. Are Runa-san and Chizuru-san the same age? Hearing these words, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly reacted and asked immediately. Because he had to keep a distance in the past, he did not dare to inquire in detail when it came to the privacy of these personal information. Yes, Igarashi Runa was not afraid to admit it. After all, in terms of age, she is indeed much older than Kurosawa. Then how can you be an old aunt and still in your prime? After receiving this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru denied it. If he guessed correctly, the underlying meaning of Miss Runa's words should be self-protection, or testing. Miss Runa probably wants to know whether she is old or not in his eyes. Chizuru had used this trick before. When faced with his amusement park date invitation, her first reaction was to build a moat and remind them of the age limit. What's more, Chizuru's reaction was even more violent, and she had to remind the teachers and students of their identities. Judging from his experience, Ms. Runa's statement that the trick doesn't work is just smoke and mirrors. The key is whether you mind our age gap. She's still in her prime, your little girlfriend is still in her prime. Aren't I an old aunt at my age? Igarashi Runa glanced at him and said quietly. In fact, Kurosawa Hikaru guessed that she really cares about her age. After being instigated by Kinhee, she thought a lot about it afterwards, and then thought about Kurosawa's attack on her that night, and she felt quite complicated. She was already very troubled. Yesterday she saw Miss Ichinose, the young and beautiful JK. I'm not happy if you say that. Sister Kinhee is the same age as you, and she is as beautiful as a flower. Hearing this statement, Kurosawa Hikaru glared at her. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, Igarashi Runa sighed. Even if she is not Sister Kinhee, in my opinion, she is not an old aunt at all at the age of 28. Kurosawa Hikaru knew that this was her mode, so naturally she wanted to cross it. What should I do? For adults, an age difference of less than 10 years is not considered, in fact, it still depends on the face. Kurosawa Hikaru thought for a while and said. Looking at his face, Igarashi Runa couldn't help but glance at him. It's just about whether they look good or not. If they both look like you and Sister Kinhee, how could they care about the age gap? Kurosawa Hikaru smiled and joked. Tokyo's most affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 383. According to what you said, if Chizuru gets older in 10 years and becomes less beautiful, will you fall in love with someone else? Igarashi Runa was not easily fooled, so she just gave him a sideways glance and drove seriously. As far as she knows, most men have one thing in common, that is, they always like young and beautiful beauties. For example, female artists and celebrities can have huge commercial value based on men's preferences. The thing that female artists in the entertainment industry fear most is their age. No matter how beautiful you are, no matter how hard you work, no matter how outstanding you are, once you exceed a certain age limit, your attractiveness to the opposite sex will be greatly reduced. What's more, it's not just about age, but also about marriage leave. Once a female artist gets married, her appeal to fans will plummet. Because of this, almost all female artists have appearance anxiety. Do you know the theory of relativity? These words were very aggressive, and even more so. Kurosawa Hikaru was not angry, but suddenly changed his mind and said, women are very insecure creatures. If there are emotional changes and fluctuations when they are talking, it is a very obvious sign. It is not difficult to tell that Ms. Runa is particularly concerned about age and appearance. Behind her aggressiveness, she is more afraid than angry. Relativity theory? Does the topic we are talking about have anything to do with this? Regarding this question, Igarashi Runa was stunned for a moment. After thinking about the concept of this theory, he felt puzzled. Having gone to college, she naturally knew about this theory. It has nothing to do with this. I just want to talk about the concept of relativeness. Seeing the change in her tone, Kurosawa sat firmly in his seat and looked forward. What's the meaning? Igarashi Runa glanced at him, curious, but did not dare to look at him for too long, lest he be distracted while driving and cause a traffic accident. Where are we going now? Go to the odd hour office. What are we going to do later? Meet with the person in charge of Cat Carnival's advertising endorsement project to discuss the specifics of the contract. Shall I go and talk alone? The two of us should go talk together. Together. Hikaru Kurosawa confirmed. Of course together. Although Igarashi Runa didn't know what his situation was, he still affirmed. That's the truth. You said that after 10 years, Sister Kinhee will become older, but so will I. Our age gap will always be 8 years. No matter how much time passes, it will not change. Seeing that she hadn't reacted yet, Kurosawa simply said. Igarashi Runa was thoughtful and couldn't help but nodded slightly. This is true. Because of age anxiety, she unconsciously forgot about this matter, and Kurosawa would also grow older. Words spoken from the heart are often more contagious. If it makes sense, it will be easier to convince people. Speaking of which, why do you like Kinzuru? There are all young and beautiful girls around you. Although I thought he was right, Igarashi Runa raised another question after thinking about it. In the past, she had no intention of asking about this issue. As a bystander, she only needed to know one thing. Kurosawa's love for Chizuru was obvious. Being young and beautiful is certainly one of the charms of a woman, but a royal sister is better than a royal sister. When asked about this, Kurosawa Hikaru's thoughts were racing, but he finally smiled. In fact, because they had known each other for the longest time, he was not sure when he fell in love with Chizuru. But one thing he was sure of was that Chizuru's charm was unique. Perhaps there were many young and beautiful girls around him in the past, but Chizuru's intellectual and mature, cold and arrogant and intelligent, and unattainable feeling made her stand out from the crowd even in a super university like Tokyo University. You have such a wide range of hobbies, you like the lower part of the year and the upper part of the year. Hearing such remarks, Igarashi Runa did not delve into the issue of Yuji's kindness, but couldn't help but glance at him. One thing, I have to clarify, I am not a lolicon. Kurosawa Hikaru's statement was also righteous. Is this a cover-up? Seeing his sudden self-defense, Igarashi Runa teased in a funny way. Be honest. Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head and said calmly. That's right, he's not a lolicon. Because of this, when he was 7 or 8 years old, he didn't get cold feet at all when facing girls of the same age, even though he was a little lowly and was indeed very cute, his childishness could not be concealed at all. Even when he was 15 or 16 years old, he felt that girls of the same age were too young. Even though they were slim and pretty, they were still too young. After all, he lived for more than 20 years in his previous life. Perhaps he was the neon who traveled to this parallel world, but although his body became smaller, his mind was still flexible and he maintained the cognition of an adult, allowing him to re-experience his childhood and youth. The reason why he suddenly fell in love after entering college may be because he was close to the age of his previous life, and his psychological defense was suddenly lowered. Of course, it may also be because his online girlfriend was too good at flirting and her rank was too high. Whether it was photos, voice messages, or videos, it all made people feel so good that she forcibly removed his guard. Don't be too harsh. If you find a lowly-type girlfriend in the future, I won't laugh at you. Igarashi Runa squinted at his magnanimous posture and teased. Then I'm not afraid at all. Even if I find another one, it will definitely not be a lowly type. Kurosawa Hikaru was confident. Then what type are you going to look for next? You have the younger sister in the lower year, you have the royal sister in the upper year, and you want to find another one of the same year. Seeing that he completely ruled out the lowly type, Igarashi Runa asked again. As she raised this question, her heartbeat couldn't stop accelerating, and her heartstrings were a little tense. Judging from his reply just now, this philandering man is obviously not satisfied with 3 girlfriends and may still find more. Well. Faced with this question, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her and fell into thought. Is this a question worth worrying about? Igarashi Runa teased, pretending not to care. I'm wondering how to describe your type. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded and explained the difficulty. What is that? You don't want to find me, do you? Igarashi Runa's heartstrings swayed, and she suddenly felt elated. She subconsciously stepped on the brakes and slowed down, pretending to be on guard, but it was a test. No, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at her profile and asked. I'm still driving, don't make fun of me. These words were very sultry. Igarashi Runa felt that she was distracted and even drove unsteadily, so she glared at him. All right. Kurosawa Hikaru immediately closed his mouth, stopped talking, and began to look ahead. Did I go too far? Runa, Aruna, why are you always like this? As he suddenly stopped speaking, Igarashi Runa peeked at him while looking at the road ahead, and found that he reacted as if he had suddenly lost his interest. She couldn't help but feel a little regretful and self-blame. As a 28-year-old leftover woman, she has never been in love for so many years. This is because she always has a critical and resistant attitude towards other people's good intentions, which can easily dampen the enthusiasm of others. Maybe it's because she grew up with a super beautiful girl like Chizuru, or maybe it's because of her family. In fact, she has a bit of inferiority deep down in her heart. Her parents always quarreled. The fundamental reason is that her father is too lazy, has high ambitions and low abilities, and is also very self-righteous. Although he doesn't have much ability, he has an outrageous temper and a great attitude. Because of this, she was prejudiced and resistant to men, especially after graduating from college and working in the entertainment industry, where she met all kinds of men. You said you like me, just with your words. Saying a few words and saying like counts as liking it. She knew that she was very strict and domineering in relationships, but she had no choice. In any case, she did not want the man she would spend the rest of her life with to be the same type as her father. He gave up so easily. He was really joking just now. Although she was aware of her bad habits, Igarashi Runa was a little disappointed when she looked at him without even looking at her own actions. Under normal circumstances, it only takes about 17 minutes to go from Kurosawa's house to the office, but now it's the morning rush hour, so it takes longer. During the silent car ride, Igarashi Runa waited again after passing several traffic lights, and simply turned on the car music to relieve her boredom. Finally, they arrived at 0-hour office. According to the agreed time, the interview is at 9 o'clock, there are still 20 minutes left, but normally, they will arrive early, so you go to the lounge first. As the electric rolling shutter door of the garage fell, Igarashi Runa took a look at the mobile phone placed next to it and said, "Have we arrived at the office?" Kurosawa Hikaru, who was wandering all the way, asked. Asking knowingly. Igarashi Runa rolled her eyes at him and turned back to unbuckle her seat belt. "Then you're not driving now, can we continue the topic?" Kurosawa Hikaru rolled his eyes and didn't care, but looked at her and said seriously. Snapped. Igarashi Runa, who was turning his head to unbuckle his seat belt, heard these sudden words, and while pressing the button, his body suddenly froze. Could it be that he didn't say anything just now because I said, "Don't joke while driving"? Immediately afterwards, Igarashi Runa realized something, and she couldn't help but feel a beating heart. Her pretty face suddenly turned a little red. It's better to keep your jokes to a minimum. Although she thought so, after thinking about it, she sat over and responded. I know, but I'm not kidding. In response to this request, Kurosawa Hikaru nodded. Faced with this situation, Igarashi Runa looked at his face and suddenly didn't know how to respond. Get out of the car, we need to prepare first. After staring at each other in silence, Igarashi Runa felt that this was not the way to go and reached out to push the car door open. Good. In response to this request, Kurosawa Hikaru followed her wishes, unbuckled his seat belt and got out of the car. I'm going to use the bathroom first. But as soon as he got out of the car, he saw Igarashi Runa's back gradually getting farther away, until he opened the garage door and walked into the office. High attack and low defense. Seeing her running like movements, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but laugh. This Miss Runa dared to scratch his palm when she shook hands with him when they first met. The day before yesterday, she sat next to him and rubbed his arm from time to time, looking like she was very good at flirting. As a result, she was directly defeated by the direct attack. The difference between love and other emotions is whether men and women can like each other. To achieve love, the first thing is to like each other. Both parties have something attractive to each other and can like each other. No woman will really fall in love with a man just because he treats her well. At most, she will be moved and just think it's good to be spoiled by him like that, so she chooses to be with him. This principle also applies to men. In this world, no man will fall in love with a woman just because she treats him well. He will only choose to accept and respond with the same mentality. Love is not something that can be chased back, perhaps this is the truth, but in a relationship, women are the weaker party after all, so men still have to take the initiative. In this world, all good things can only be obtained through active struggle. This is true for family, friendship, and love. If you know that a beautiful thing is what you desire, but you stay where you are, the result will only be missing it. After thinking, Kurosawa Hikaru did not rush to catch up, but opened the task panel. Dating task, first date with Igarashi Runa. Task objectives, meet alone at the izakaya, carry her home when she is half drunk, make her shy 3 times, let her kiss your lips. Task deadline, 360 hours, 15 days. Task funds, entry-level wine tasting, entry-level massage, experience card. Task rewards, entry-level wine tasting, entry-level massage, permanent. What he wants to see is not just limited to the surface text, but a deeper level and meaning. Based on the experience of doing tasks during this period of time, he has found a rule and fact. As long as the goal of the task can be achieved, the relationship between men and women will definitely be significantly warmed up. In addition, the task funds are usually the qualities and abilities that the woman hopes the other party has. If they can be shown, it is definitely a plus. Wine tasting means drinking together, and I can drink more than her. Can massage make her happy? Finally, facing this task, Kurosawa Hikaru speculated based on the ability of the task funds. At the same time, Igarashi Runa, who ran out of the garage, slipped into the bathroom and closed the door. What's going on? Is he serious? Isn't he afraid that Chizuru will be jealous and angry? Although Chizuru also expects this and will not be angry at all, he doesn't know. He touched my waist before, could it be that he fell in love with me? Is it true? What should I do? With her back against the bathroom door, Igarashi Runa was alone, her face was hot, and her mood was uneasy and restless. For this situation, she was at a loss and didn't know how to deal with it. In fact, she was not very repulsive to Kurosawa Hikaru's previous behavior of hugging her waist, but rather a little complacent. After all, when they first met, when she followed them to the amusement park to be a light bulb, Kurosawa Hikaru hugged her during the trampoline, and it was a princess hug, showing a very strong boyfriend power. As for why he suddenly hugged her waist, she knew it in her heart. After all, that day, because Chizuru instigated her, she no longer deliberately kept a distance, but sat close to Kurosawa, even close to his arm, completely defenseless. Such close behavior, any man would not be able to resist. At that time, she was a hunter, and seeing Kurosawa, the prey, fall into the trap, she had a sense of satisfaction that the plan succeeded, and wanted to laugh. But now, the prey suddenly jumped out of the trap, and even pounced on her, which made her unable to resist, and felt that the situation was out of control. After being nervous for a while, Igarashi Runa saw the sink next to her and walked over. "Runa, you have to calm down, he is a younger brother who is 8 years younger than you have to be calm, don't lose the demeanor of a queen." Facing the mirror, Igarashi Runa took a few deep breaths, adjusted her posture, and while persuading herself, she reached out to pull her clothes and adjust her demeanor. Not long after, she walked out of the bathroom. "Why are you here? Didn't you go to the restroom?" As soon as she walked out of the bathroom, Igarashi Runa bumped into Kurosawa Hikaru standing beside her, a little puzzled. "I saw you haven't come out for so long, and wondered if you might have had an accident." Kurosawa Hikaru saw her and smiled. "What kind of accident can happen when you go to the bathroom? Go to the restroom and wait. I'll contact someone to meet up first, and then come down when I send you a message." Igarashi Runa was speechless when she heard this. She rolled her eyes at him unhappily, and then turned around and walked towards the office. Her back was very beautiful. Although the combination of the suit and shirt on the upper body looked very formal and decent, the hip skirt could not hide her curvy and graceful figure. "Should I wear the zero-time suit later?" Kurosawa Hikaru asked when he saw her back. "I'll send you a message later. This time we are a partner who has signed a contract. There are disputes about obligations and interests. If there are no irrelevant people waiting, let's meet with our true colors. Igarashi Runa, who had already reached the door of the office, turned around after thinking. Good. Kurosawa Hikaru saw her go to the toilet, regain her composure, nodded slightly, and then walked up the stairs to the lounge. Obviously, because the work was close at hand and it was early in the morning, even if her defense was very low and she couldn't bear the temptation, she still recovered easily. This is normal. You are not a 13 or 14-year-old child who has just started to have a romantic interest. As an adult, you usually have no interest early in the morning. Usually, the best time to talk about love is at night, which can also be understood as the time when the sky gets dark, or when the day's work is over. Starting from dinner, the further the time advances, especially late at night, people's pursuit of emotion and interest will reach its peak. At such a time, if you have a few more drinks, it will be the pinnacle of peaks, completely throwing aside rationality. In a sense, the chance of success in expressing love is the lowest time of the day in the morning. Anyway, in his knowledge, he has never seen a case of confessing to someone early in the morning. Only one person is here. There are no irrelevant people waiting. Come directly to my office. Not long after, Kurosawa Hikaru received the message while sitting in the lounge. Receive. After seeing this message, Kurosawa Hikaru replied, put his phone in his pocket, and stood up. There is no need to wear a mask or change clothes, and he is happy and relaxed. After all, the reason why he wanted to disguise himself as 0 Hour was to prevent his private life from being disturbed by fans. As for business partners, everyone makes money together. No one will cause trouble for you without knowing what is appropriate. Instead, they want to help each other. Knock knock knock. Going all the way down from the 3rd floor, Kurosawa Hikaru quickly arrived in front of the office door on the 1st floor. Just come in. Immediately afterwards, a voice sounded from inside the door. Upon hearing this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru opened the door and walked in. As the office of the owner of the firm, this room is quite spacious and has a typical office style. There is a desk with bookshelves on both sides that can store various materials and project books. There is also a seating area with 2 sofas where you can rest and talk with others. In the sofa area, 2 women were sitting. One of them is naturally Igarashi Runa. The other woman was sitting with her back to the door, but her upper body that could be seen through the back of the sofa had brown wavy hair. Her figure was very slender, and she looked pretty from the back alone. 0 Hour, this is Miss Nishimura, the person in charge of the Cat Carnival advertising endorsement project. It was she who single-handedly promoted this endorsement cooperation. With the arrival of Kurosawa Hikaru, Igarashi Runa stood up and introduced. I am Ryoko Nishimura, the Vice President of Cat Carnival, Mr. 0 Hour. This is our first meeting. Please take care of me. Immediately afterwards, Nishimura Ryoko took a deep breath, adjusted her expression, plucked up the courage to stand up, and said hello with a slight sideways smile. While reporting her origins, she saw the appearance of Kurosawa Hikaru and was so shocked that she was speechless. Because this 0 Hour is too young and handsome, right? It was completely different from what she had imagined. Excuse me, is this really Mr. 0 Hour? Immediately, Nishimura Ryoko couldn't help but look back at Igarashi Runa and confirmed. According to her imagination, a great piano master like Master Ling Shi had already achieved fame a long time ago, but he suddenly had an epiphany and decided to start from scratch. Based on a reasonable inference, it is not an exaggeration to say that he is over 40 years old. He's really 0 Hour. Faced with her shocked reaction, the corners of Igarashi Runa's mouth raised slightly, feeling proud. Ms. Nishimura, I am Hikaru Kurosawa, stage name is 0 Hour. This is my first time meeting you. Please take care of me. At the same time, Kurosawa Hikaru stepped forward and nodded slightly to her. Please take care of me. Seeing him approaching, Nishimura Ryoko looked at his face, which was more handsome than many artists, and couldn't help but feel a little shy. Isn't this too handsome? Although his appearance is still a bit green and not very mature, his elegant and intellectual temperament, youthful and energetic appearance, and magnetic voice make him look unique. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 384. Business cooperation sounds complicated, but the preparation stage is relatively simple. To put it simply, as long as both parties can reach an agreement, each can get what they want. The main responsibility of an agent is to help artists negotiate matters with brands and partners. In layman's terms, an agent is a businessman who treats artists as commodities, enters the market, and negotiates with others. Although it is Hikaru Kurosawa's first time as an artist, he has never eaten pork, and has he never seen a pig running? Just like that, after the formal greeting, he sat next to Igarashi Runa and closed his mouth. Mr. 0 Hour looks so young. Nishimura Ryoko couldn't help but look at Kurosawa Hikaru's appearance, always feeling that he was particularly young. He is 20 years old. To have such an achievement at such a young age is really impressive. Isn't it the same with Miss Nishimura? She became the talker of a listed company at a young age. What an award! No one dislikes compliments, especially if they are right to the point. Ryoko Nishikawa rolled her hair and said with a smile. She looks quite beautiful, mature and calm, wears a pair of glasses, intellectual and capable. Competent people are often more attractive in the eyes of others. The filming of advertising endorsements is no longer scheduled this month. After the contract is officially signed, it is expected to start fulfilling the contract obligations next month. I wonder if your company thinks there is any problem with the decision of the state. After a brief chat, Igarashi Runa returned to the topic and explained the situation. No problem. After thinking about it, Nishikawa Ryoko nodded. In her early 30s, she was able to become the vice president of a listed company. Although her beauty took the lead, she still remained calm. Regarding advertising endorsement contracts, most of the issues have been resolved during this period, whether through phone calls or interviews. The only thing that hasn't been completed yet is Master 0 Hour's appearance and signature. As long as it can be confirmed that Master 0 Hour is an artist from 0 Hour Agency and the contract is signed, there will be no doubts about this cooperation. In that case, Miss Nishimura, then we will officially sign the contract. Igarashi Runa slightly chinned her head, saying it wouldn't be too late. Since the establishment of the firm, although contracts have been signed, such as the Tokyo Bunkakaikan residency contract, as the spokesperson of the firm, she has directly signed strategic cooperation agreements. However, the office-based contract is, after all, a relatively special cooperation. It has not yet brought any obvious benefits to the firm on paper. It is a long-term cooperation. In contrast, this advertising endorsement is a very intuitive business contract, which means you can earn 1 billion yen in revenue after signing the contract. Once this contract is signed, Lingshi's worth in the entertainment industry market will have a preliminary positioning. This is a very important part for artists. Before signing the contract, I have a small request. Nishimura Ryoko glanced sideways at Kurosawa Hikaru opposite him, but was not in a hurry to sign the contract. Please say. I want to see Mr. 0 Hour play a song live again. Our company attaches great importance to this advertising endorsement cooperation and must ensure that everything is foolproof. You want him to prove that he is 0 Hour. Igarashi Runa was thoughtful and guessed her purpose. That's right. Nishimura Ryoko saw her telling the truth and affirmed. Although Kurosawa Hikaru is very handsome, he is the kind of pretty boy who is very attractive to a strong woman in her early 30s. But because of this, she had to doubt the authenticity of Kurosawa Hikaru's identity. The company she works for is a game company that made its fortune from music games and has since grown from strength to strength. Naturally, she understands music, trends, and the needs of young people. When Zero Hour came out with the song Croatian Rhapsody, it was extremely topical, with a very personal image, and calm and elegant piano skills. She immediately felt that this person very suitable to be the spokesperson of Cat Carnival. Especially after going to the Tokyo Bunkakaikan, she was deeply shocked. She was certain that Master Ling Shi was definitely a senior with his high level of attainments and rich experience in the piano field. Perhaps the old artist does not have the blessing of the aura of emotion, but the topic and popularity of Zero Hour are too high, and his popularity is so fast that he can be said to be the best in the world. Moreover, his image is very special, especially suitable for music games. That's why she had been holding board meetings to discuss matters during that time, and finally decided to take a big gamble. Master Zero Hour would definitely become a big hit. In order to sign a contract with him, she would offer treatment and sincerity that were beyond the past. This cooperation has been going smoothly from the beginning of the negotiation, but now someone told her that Master Zero Hour is a 20-year-old young man, which is intriguing. May I? Having revealed the situation, Igarashi Runa turned her head slightly and looked at Kurosawa Hikaru beside her. Certainly. Hikaru Kurosawa, who was sitting on the same sofa with her for the interview, naturally agreed to her question. He could understand the concerns and suspicions of Miss Nishimura. After all, his proficient piano skills were, logically speaking, impossible to possess without half a lifetime of accumulation and talent. Let alone her disbelief, if he suddenly announced his identity, most people would not believe it. From the first moment, one can believe that he is Zero Hour, and only Miki Baiha can seize the current situation like that. Then let's go, Miss Nishimura, please move to the second floor. Seeing that he had no objection, Igarashi Runa nodded and couldn't help but look forward to it. She doesn't know piano, but she likes music, which is why she entered the entertainment industry as an agent. During the conversation, they stood up and walked out of the office together to the recording studio on the second floor. Along the way, Nishimura Ryoko was also looking at the environment. Although Zero Hour office is small, like a studio, the equipment it should have is not ambiguous at all, at least, there is no big problem with the piano. What is a pity is that the recording studio space is too small to fully display the charm and power of Steinway. Having said that, in terms of environment, the overall situation is relatively good. For example, in this recording studio, the air conditioner is obviously turned on 24 hours a day to control the temperature to the most comfortable range for the piano. What song would Miss Nishimura want me to play? Kurosawa Hikaru came to the piano and sat down. He didn't start playing directly, but asked. The bell is a classic piece that has been performed by many piano masters, but the style of the bell at Zero Hour is inimitable. Seeing his elegant and calm sitting posture, Nishimura Ryoko couldn't help but look at him a few more times and said. The same piece of music, performed by different pianists, gives people completely different feelings. Perhaps most beginners will always play the same piece of music, but the reason why piano masters are masters is because they have their own style. The style of Zero Hour is that of being talented, gifted, calm, and confident, with impeccable perfection in musicality and melody, and even the intensity and rhythm of playing. It is no exaggeration to say that looking around the world, she could not even think of another pianist who could rival Zero Hour. She could have chosen Croatian Rhapsody or Flight of the Bumblebee. After all, these are both masterpieces of the Zero Hour master. But compared to the bell, the difficulty of playing these two pieces of music is actually relatively simple. The most important thing is that she really wants to hear the bell played live by Master Zero Hour again. After receiving her answer, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't say much, but just adjusted his posture. With his hands on the keyboard, his playing began. There is no need to prepare in advance, and there is no need to think about the music score. His performance seems to be engraved into the instinct of the body. The recording room was very quiet, and the moment the clear and clean piano sounded, the bells also rang. Master 0 Hour is really so young. Just the prelude, Nishimura Ryoko found the answer and was extremely shocked. An expert will know if there is one as soon as he takes action. She didn't even need to listen to the complete song, because she had listened to the replay video of Master 0 Hour's competition at the Kawaii Piano Competition in Tokyo Bunkakaikan countless times in the past few days. Immediately afterwards, she was deeply attracted by the sound of the piano, and her eyes were stunned. People who like music tend to be more emotional. Everyone's favorite music is different and varies from person to person. But what is certain is that the reason why everyone falls in love with music is because of resonance and the pursuit of rhythm and melody. Looks like she has the answer. Igarashi Runa stood with her hands folded behind her, with a rather feminine posture. She looked at Kurosawa Hikaru and also looked sideways at Nishimura Ryoko, feeling very proud. Maybe the person playing the piano at this moment is not her, but Hikaru Kurosawa. But this does not affect her pride at all, because Kurosawa is her artist, her baby, and her idol. If she could, she wanted to tell everyone in the world how awesome Kurosawa really was, and let people understand why she admired him so much. As the sound of the piano played, the charm of the bell gradually bloomed. Nishikawa Ryoko couldn't help but hold her breath while looking at the performance in front of her. When the bells reached their climax and thousands of bells tolled in unison, the small recording studio seemed to transform into a luxurious, spacious, and brightly lit dance hall. In addition to the interpretation of the sound of the piano, the pianist's performance also includes body movements and even facial expressions, which are all part of the performance. If a pianist's first audience is anyone, it is definitely himself. No one knows better than them what kind of state they are in. He's shooting blindly. Seeing the dazzling moment when he entered the climax, his hands seemed to be holding up the after-image, and his eyes gradually closed on his handsome face, as if he had entered a state of selflessness. Nishikawa Ryoko couldn't help but he covered his mouth with his hands, feeling extremely shocked and afraid that he would disturb her. Different from the previous Tokyo Bunkakaikan, the 0 Hour master at that time wore a mask and his expression and demeanor could not be seen. This time, she suddenly discovered that the difficulty of the performance was the climax of horror. Master 0 Hour actually closed his eyes and played blindly. This is an overwhelming talent, and compared to ordinary people, there is a dimensional barrier in strength. Why can the bell at 0 Hour cause such an uproar and shock the whole country? Not only because of its charming and melodious sound, but also because of the elegance performed by 0 Hour in a violent and gorgeous way. This is a feast of sight and hearing. Unless you are deaf or blind, anyone who sees his performance or hears his music will be impressed by him. When the sound of the piano ended, the recording studio became quiet again. However, even after the song ends, the aftertaste of the natural sound still echoes in everyone's body. List is so amazing. After the first album is completed, I will make all the originals for the second album. The same was true for Hikaru Kurosawa. When he once again performed the bell, he had an extremely profound appreciation of this pianist's talent and couldn't help but yearn for it. He actually has the ability to arrange music, whether it's Croatian Rhapsody or Adirina by the Water, because he can't remember all the melody, he can only come up with 70% to 80%, and the rest. All filled in based on his understanding of the piano. In fact, although he has been carrying the world-famous piano music that he has listened to in his previous life, he does so because he wants to bring such good music to this world, to put it elegantly. To put it vulgarly, he does it to ensure that it can make the firm make money. Because as long as the piano music he heard in his previous life and had an impression on him, it was a famous piece that was widely recognized by the market. In contrast, if he wants to be original, the effect cannot be guaranteed. He had the confidence to ask Miss Runai to start a business with him because he had the capital to live a new life. He has entry-level piano skills, coupled with the deep memory of those timeless world-famous songs, not to mention that he will become fat in one breath and become popular all over the country. At least he will have no problem making money and selling well. Miss Nishimura, do you think I am 0 hour? Kurosawa Hikaru, who was immersed in the aftertaste and completely digested, turned his head and looked at Nishimura Ryoko aside, and asked. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, before he could even wait for a reply, he got the answer he wanted. I saw the way Nishikawa Ryoko looked at him, admiring him beyond measure and being deeply shocked. Mr. 0 hour, can you give me an autograph later? Nishikawa Ryoko did not answer this question, but asked uncontrollably. She became a fan of 0 hour when she first saw it live at the Tokyo Bunkakaikan. Now, after enjoying 0 hour's performance so close, she can be sure that her idol will never change in this life. With pleasure, let's go back to the office. At this request, Kurosawa Hikaru smiled and stood up. Although Miss Nishikawa is not the sponsor is the company she represents. But according to Ms. Runa, this cooperation, such generous remuneration, and such good treatment were all made possible by Ms. Nishikawa. In a sense, she is chasing stars at public expense. Mr. 0 hour, why did you choose to wear a mask? With your looks and appearance, you would be more popular if you didn't wear a mask, right? As Kurosawa Hikaru walked towards the door, Nishikawa Ryoko followed closely and couldn't help but ask. Because I want to make a living from playing the piano, but I don't want my private life to be disturbed. When did you start learning piano? I was probably 5 years old when I first came into contact with the piano. In other words, have you studied piano for 16 years? You can say that. I used to study piano for 17 years, but then I had no time to play because of work. Now I am no longer good at it. If there is a chance, can you teach me? Well. Faced with her increasingly enthusiastic attitude, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly couldn't resist it. As the saying goes, 30 is like a wolf, 40 is like a tiger, although this sentence is used to describe women in sexual intercourse. But this situation will actually appear in life. Ms. Nishikawa, you are very busy with your studies during odd hours. Runa Igarashi, who was following behind, noticed his difficulty and said with a smile. Yes, Mr. Lingshi is 20 years old this year and is still in school age. Which university are you studying at? The University of Tokyo. Isn't it a foreign music conservatory for further study? I don't want to be too far from home. Did Mr. 0 hour turn out to be the Gu family's type? This seems different from the Gu family. Kurosawa Hikaru always felt that her statement was a bit strange. I have to say that it is really scary for a woman to become passionate. During the conversation, the group of them returned to the office. Between casual chat and serious business, the interaction progressed. This was the result of Igarashi Runa's forced control of the overall situation. There are still many details to discuss when it comes to advertising endorsements. After all, things involving money are not that simple. However, after officially signing the advertising endorsement contract, there is still the issue of music licensing to discuss. In Kurosawa's view, Flight of the Bumblebee is definitely suitable for music games, as is Croatian Rhapsody. With the help of these two songs, it can become famous among young people. As for music licensing, I plan to go back to the board of directors to have serious discussions before formulating new projects. Speaking of new projects, Nishikawa Ryoko said after thinking about it. As she spoke, her eyes were completely glued to Kurosawa Hikaru, with great enthusiasm and admiration. There's no rush, we're looking forward to working with your company. For business matters, Runa Igarashi is the sole agent. Okay, I will work out a contract that satisfies both parties as soon as possible, Mr. Zero Hour, will you be free later? Is there a chance to have lunch with you? Miss Nishikawa, I have an appointment at midnight. I'm afraid I won't have the chance to have lunch with you this time. What about next time? Realizing that it wouldn't work this time, Ryoko Nishikawa felt pity, but she didn't give up. If possible, she would like to spend more time with her idol. I will try my best to arrange my time next time. I am really busy at odd hours. In addition to taking care of my studies, I have to practice piano every day. For this kind of situation, Igarashi Runa is not uncommon, and her speech skills are very versatile. Generally speaking, financial sponsors have some agenda for artists, whether it's for talent or for sex. For example, Fujiwara Rika, because she is young and beautiful, has had many invitations like this before. Most invitations can be solved by delaying. Of course, there are a few situations that cannot be solved by delaying tactics. For example, if you don't accompany me to have a meal or go to a dance, the cooperation will be ruined. I will be forced to go to an appointment reluctantly. After all, artist cooperation and signing are not only personal matters, but also about the collective interests of the company. Good. Although it was a delaying strategy, it was better to have a hope than no hope. Nishikawa Ryoko couldn't force it, so she could only nod and resign herself to fate. Not long after, we chatted for a while again, because the agreed time had come, and the business meeting was officially over. Mr. Zero Hour, see you next time. I will definitely bring you a satisfactory contract next time. When saying goodbye, Nishikawa Ryoko chuckled as she walked out of the office. Then I'll spare you the trouble. Hearing her assurance, Kurosawa smiled back. You go back to the lounge and wait for a while. I'll see Miss Nishikawa off. At the same time, Igarashi Runa sent her away. Of course, it just needs to be delivered to the door. After all, the vice president of a listed company still drives when going out. Going up to the lounge on the third floor, Kurosawa sat down on the sofa and breathed a long sigh of relief. This negotiation went quite smoothly, thanks to a certain person's beauty. Not long after, Igarashi Runa opened the door to the lounge and walked in. Stop talking, I'm exhausted. Hearing her teasing, Kurosawa Hikaru sighed. You won't sigh, right? Isn't it a good thing that Miss Nishikawa likes you so much? It means you are popular. Igarashi Runa couldn't help but snicker when she saw the way he sighed. Chatting with her is more tiring than me playing 10 pieces of piano music. Kurosawa Hikaru had a headache. Don't you like teasing girls? Don't you like being teased by girls? Seeing that he was very tired, Igarashi Runa walked to the table, picked up his cup, and went to pour water. It depends on the person. If a girl is as beautiful as you, I will definitely like her. Seeing this thoughtful gesture, Kurosawa looked at her graceful back and figure and changed the subject. Although Miss Nishikawa is quite beautiful, it depends on who she is compared to. When I walked to the water dispenser and was pouring water to clean the cup, Igarashi Runa couldn't help but stiffen when he heard this. What is this? Confession? Or is it a scene talk? You said I have a date for dinner later. Who do you want to eat with later? Seeing her stiff movements, Kurosawa realized that she didn't know how to respond to what he said, so he simply changed the subject. That's just a situational talk to deal with Miss Nishikawa, can't you hear it? Igarashi Runa rolled her eyes at him. I thought I was really going to have dinner with someone. Kurosawa Hikaru breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, he knew that it was a shirk, just to divert her attention. The time now is around 10 o'clock in the morning, which is still not suitable for romance. Are you afraid? Igarashi Runa felt funny when she saw his look. Representatives of partners like Ms. Nishikawa are already easy to get along with. A little. Kurosawa Hikaru is really scared. He doesn't even know that his beauty can be so lethal to a woman in her 30s. Is this the royal sister killer? Or a young woman killer? There are 3 more signing negotiations today at 10:30, 1:30, and 3:30. Igarashi Runa reminded leisurely. Because Kurosawa has been very busy and has no time to show up, there are still many things on hold. Of the 5 initially selected projects, except for Tokyo Culture Tokyo, who had seen her in action as 0 Hour's manager, they readily asked her to sign the contract as their representative. The other partners all wanted to see 0 Hour. I am willing to sign the contract. Work is not that simple, and wanting to make money is not that easy either. Will it be a boy or a girl later? Male. That's fine, Kurosawa nodded. Let's take a look at Xiaopazan's Zhong Lang Lang again, it's so cool. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Tokyo's Most Affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 385. 4 people, work, and study are actually the same. The similarities between the two are the boring and tedious process and the rewards after putting in time and effort. It's finally done. As the final business negotiations ended and the guests were sent away, Kurosawa Hikaru sat on the sofa, feeling relieved. Today, in order to prove that he is 0 Hour, he played the bell 4 times, Croatian Rhapsody twice, and Adelina by the Water once. In fact, piano playing is very tiring because it requires extremely high concentration. But what's more difficult than playing is the representatives from various companies. The situations in every business meeting are extremely similar. First, he introduced himself, and the representative politely stated that he did not believe that Kurosawa Hikaru was 0 Hour. Then he played a song. The representative was greatly shocked, and his attitude changed 180 degrees. He directly transformed into a fanatical fan, with ultimate admiration. Unlike Ryoko Nishikawa, the 3 partners after that were more or less greedy. In addition to the bell, they also hoped that he could play other piano music. Even if he learned wisely and simply put on the 0 Hour suit and put on the mask, it was still useless. Even though his voice and appearance are genuine, 0 Hour's mask is just a symbol, just the image that people recognize. The tuxedo, voice, and mask cannot prove his identity at all. Only his piano skills are the only evidence. Thank you for your hard work. You played for so long today. Are your shoulders tired? At this moment, a pair of hands touched Kurosawa's back shoulders and gently massaged him. Those small hands, even through the clothes, can still feel the soft touch. Feeling this movement, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but raise his head and look at the person behind him. Igarashi Runa was seen standing behind the sofa, reaching out to massage him, with a slight smile on her pretty face, looking down at him. Any other plans next? Seeing her overjoyed smile, Kurosawa Hikaru did not stop her movements, but relaxed his body to enjoy it. Although the work is boring, it is still quite enjoyable when I think about the benefits that those contracts can bring. And today's harvest is far more than that. For example, Miss Runa is in a particularly good mood. As he spoke, Kurosawa Hikari couldn't help but close his eyes and let out a very subtle hum. Ms. Runa's technique is quite impressive. It may not be very powerful, nor is it targeted at acupuncture points, but the strength is well controlled. The touch brought by the fingertips between the up, down, left and right movements is particularly comfortable. Your work is over today. Let's go out for dinner together later, and then I'll take you home. Seeing that he felt very comfortable, Igarashi Runa's lips curved into an obvious smile, and her hands moved even harder. Are you going to work later? When Kurosawa Hikaru heard this, he immediately opened his eyes. Yes. Igarashi Runa nodded slightly and explained. Maybe the business talks have been settled, but the contract is not something you can get paid just by signing it, you still have to fulfill your obligations. If he had signed 4 contracts in a row at the previous Huan-Seeing firm, he would have been preparing for a celebration party. But things are different now. There are too few staff in the odd-hour office, so she has to take care of various jobs. How long will you work until? It depends on the progress of the work, so we can't tell for the time being. Are there many jobs? It's quite a lot. There should be a lot of money in the firm's books, right? Why not recruit some employees? Kurosawa Hikaru made a rough guess and asked. Obviously, the fundamental reason why Ms. Runa is busy is that she has no help. Come to think of it, this firm currently only has 4 people. Among them, he and Xiaoyuki are active as entertainers, while Chizuru is a pure investor and basically does not interfere with the affairs of the office. It is no exaggeration to say that everything from business cooperation and business development to trivial matters such as water and electricity bills and venue decoration are all handled by Ms. Runa. Our firm is in the critical stage of getting started, and every step is a top priority. Don't worry, I'm already looking for candidates. Speaking of recruiting people, Igarashi Runa was very excited while giving him a massage. After signing the contract, it means that their firm will officially take off. Even though the funds have not yet arrived, there are many things she can do with the value of these contracts. The most important thing is that with a bulging wallet and confidence, she can select talents. Don't be too reluctant. The development of the firm is important, but if you accidentally tire yourself out, then the gain will outweigh the loss. Seeing that she didn't feel disgusted at all about the things that still had a lot of work to do next, and was even eager to try and excited, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't interfere too much and just warned her. How can I get tired so easily? Igarashi Runa didn't care about this, and began to think of the outstanding talents he had met before, and planned how to poach them. Are you so confident in yourself? Kurosawa was surprised to find that she was extremely confident in her ability to work. When I first entered the industry, I suffered a lot with Rika. The most tiring time was that I didn't have a chance to sleep for 2 days and 1 night. Igarashi Runa nodded naturally and talked about his glorious past. Can you last 2 days and 1 night without sleeping? I don't know if I can bear it. Kurosawa Hikaru looked up at her, considering and savoring thoughtfully. You haven't been serious since this morning. Seeing the faint smile at the corner of his mouth, Igarashi Runa suddenly reacted, rolled her eyes at him in feigned anger, punched him, and said angrily. She has been in the entertainment industry for so many years and has been socializing for a long time. Although his words may not sound like much, but combined with his expression and tone, she can feel that what this bad guy said is full of sexual content. Why am I not serious? Hearing this, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly felt innocent and looked at her. What do you think? Seeing the innocent expression on his face, Igarashi Runa reached out to pinch his face as if to tempt her to reveal the truth. This little trick, for those little girls who are not very experienced in the world, may make their faces turn red and they dare not speak, but to her, it is child's play. No way. In this regard, Kurosawa Hikaru tried his best to deny it, that is, he did not admit that he said something inappropriate. So thick-skinned. Igarashi Runa found that he refused to acknowledge or argue with him, but just snorted knowingly. Ah! At this moment, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly shook his body and let out a low groan. What's wrong? Seeing this scene, Igarashi Runa, who had been massaging him without stopping, was a little surprised. Did you accidentally press any of his tendons? Miss Runa, I'm sorry, it was so comfortable. I couldn't hold it back and came out. Facing her surprise, Kurosawa shook his head slightly and apologized. After hearing these words, Igarashi Runa always felt that something was strange, and the more he tasted, the more something was wrong. As a gold medal agent, reading a lot of books and being familiar with various film and television works and movies are basic skills. You say that again, I won't press it anymore. After thinking for a while, Igarashi Runa suddenly realized the meaning of what he just said and stopped immediately. No, let's continue. But at this moment, Kurosawa Hikaru suddenly reached out and grabbed her hand, holding her tight. I have to say, you don't know if you don't hold it, but with this hold, her white wrist is very smooth and soft, making people feel like they can't put it down. Then be honest. Faced with his request, although Igarashi Runa wanted to avoid the atmosphere becoming awkward, she still followed his wishes and just taught him a lesson. Good. Kurosawa nodded and agreed, then stopped talking. Seeing that he was being honest, Runa Igarashi's hands fell on his shoulders again and started to knead them for him. It is very enjoyable to have someone massage you. If this person is still beautiful, it is a great beauty in the world. Miss Runa, where did you learn this shoulder massage technique? Why is it so powerful? After a while, Kurosawa Hikaru spoke again. I learned it in a massage parlor. I also give Chizuru massages occasionally. She sits a lot and writes a lot over time, her shoulders will accumulate a lot of fatigue and they will always be very sore. In response to such praise, the corners of Igarashi Runa's mouth raised slightly. Although this kind of talent does not help much in the work of an agent, it can still be regarded as a skill. No matter what kind of talent it is, as long as it can be recognized by others and put to use, that is a good thing. Have you ever worked in a massage parlor? Kurosawa Hikaru was very surprised. You just worked in a massage parlor. I worked so hard before and now that I'm making money, can't I just enjoy it? Igarashi Runa stared at him speechlessly. After people make money, they can't just think about buying a house or a car in the future. They must also focus on the present and pursue enjoyment and a better life. If everything is considered for the future, then life will be too boring, and there will be no motivation to make money. Is the massage parlor you go to serious? It's a massage parlor, not a sex shop. Of course it's serious. Seeing that he was thinking wrongly, Igarashi Runa reached out and pinched him again. Chizuru-san needs a massage because her shoulders are sore. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded and asked again. Yes. Are your shoulders sore? Of course I will, otherwise why would I want a massage? Sister Kinhee, her shoulders are sore because she writes a lot, so what's your reason? Although I was an agent, my early job was traveling around, and later I also sat in an office. Oh. Hearing this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru couldn't help but glance at her. Don't look. Igarashi Runa noticed his gaze and glanced down slightly. She realized that he was staring at her up high. She suddenly realized what he had been alluding to just now. She suddenly felt embarrassed and reached out to cover him. Eyes. This guy, it turned out that he thought her size was too big, which was why his shoulders were sore. Although this is true, there are still many reasons why her shoulders are sore. Even if you can't tell me, but this is force majeure for me. Although Kurosawa Hikaru's eyes were covered, his mouth kept moving. Why is it force majeure? Igarashi Runa answered subconsciously. This guy was clearly able to control himself before and didn't look at her at all. Because the greater the mass of the planet, the greater the gravity. Although Kurosawa Hikaru was invisible, his other senses were amplified, as if he could smell a sweet and addictive fragrance. Among the women around him, Miss Runa is definitely the most beautiful woman. You still said that. Igarashi Runa didn't expect that he had a backup plan, so she got angry and slapped his face with her hands, trying to stop his mouth. Ha ha ha. Regarding such punishment, Kurosawa Hikaru didn't feel any pain at all and laughed out loud. Although he was being punished, he was smiling, not because he was but because he felt that the distance between Miss Runa and him was beginning to shorten. The way they get along is no longer the same as before, maintaining an obvious distance. Just like the current situation, if a third person is present, you will definitely think that they are flirting. This kind of interaction is actually very ambiguous. In the past, it would not have been possible between them. After joking for a while, the massage was over. "Miss Runa, do you have to finish your work later today?" Kurosawa glanced at the time, it was now 1742, and asked. "It doesn't have to be done today, but if there is work, it's best to finish it early, otherwise, once the work piles up, it will be out of control." Igarashi Runa no longer stood behind the sofa, but sat down on another sofa. Although during business negotiations, she always sat on the same sofa as Kurosawa Hikaru. What's more, the day before yesterday, she and Chizuru sat next to Kurosawa Hikaru, so close that their arms were close to each other. But in view of the situation just now, she did not dare to sit too close to Kurosawa Hikaru. Because of the change in position, from hunter to prey, she felt at a loss. Facing Kurosawa's initiative, she really couldn't handle it, let alone resist it. "Then do you want to celebrate tonight?" Hikaru Kurosawa realized that she didn't have procrastination and wasn't surprised, so he just suggested. Able to become a gold medal agent, and also a virtuous family member, Ms. Runa has a very diligent character and can endure hardships. "Celebrate what?" Igarashi Runa was a little confused. "Celebrate signing 4 contracts today. What's wrong with you? When Flight of the Bumblebee was released and achieved unprecedented success, you didn't even want to celebrate." Facing this invitation, Igarashi Runa sat on the sofa with her arms folded and looked at him. As a woman, she knows very well that men's invitations to women are 100% unkind. Especially in the name of celebration, even if you don't say it beforehand, once you get to the dinner table, drinking is inevitable. "I was too busy before." Kurosawa was very calm about this question. In fact, the reason why he didn't celebrate before was not because he was busy at all, but because he wanted to keep distance from Igarashi Runa. After all, she was his girlfriend's best friend, and after being exposed by the system, he knew that Miss Runa had a crush on him. In order to prevent friendships from deteriorating, contact must be reduced as much as possible. "So how are you going to celebrate?" Igarashi Runa looked at him deeply, thought for a long time, and then asked. "Let's go eat and have a few drinks." Kurosawa is not afraid to speak out, because he really wants to celebrate, and their next meeting is at an izakaya. "Just the two of us?" Igarashi Runa asked again. "Should I call Sister Kinhee? She has to go to work tomorrow morning. She took time off in order to shoot the MV with you. Look at my memory. I forgot about this. She doesn't have summer vacation now." When Kurosawa Hikaru heard this, he slapped his head and said suddenly. Through these words, he could feel that Miss Runa was actually looking forward to a date alone. Perhaps they had had several experiences of being alone together in the office before this, but the atmosphere was different depending on the occasion. Between men and women, if you want to enhance the relationship, the choice of occasion is very important. "I do not have either." "But you don't have a boss. You are the boss. You can go to work whenever you want." "That's true. It makes people feel comfortable." Speaking of the identity of the boss, Igarashi Runa was a little happy. "After resigning from Huansing office, I no longer worked as a worker, but felt like my own boss. It was really refreshing and I no longer had to be controlled by others. Of course, she is very self-disciplined and motivated, and she does everything she needs to do safely." "Then let's go." Kurosawa Hikaru asked when he saw her smile. "I'll clean up first and wait a moment." Igarashi Runa nodded. After that, she stood up and walked outside. Seeing her turn around and leave, Kurosawa Hikaru was not in a hurry and sat there and waited. "One of the best tacit understandings in the world is that I understand your pretense of reserve, and you understand my evil intentions." Although he doesn't have many plans, after all, the story between him and Miss Runa has just begun. Okay, let's go. Not long after, Igarashi Runa opened the door and returned to the lounge. You tidied up just to change clothes. As she returned, Kurosawa Hikaru took one look and couldn't look away. Igarashi Runa left, took off her OL uniform and changed into another set of clothes. She is wearing an ultra-thin windbreaker, lined with a white hollow V-neck short-sleeved top. The collar has a collar with a misplaced fabric design connected to the neck. There is a pearl pendant under the neck. The cuffs are designed with puff sleeves. The fabric is ice silk, and the craft is knitting. Especially the hollow V-neck design is even more tempting. The sexy collarbone is at the corner, like two bridges buried between the white snow and the clouds, with a towering peak below. This kind of outfit is so impactful that no man can resist it with just one glance. And white is a color that makes you look bigger. This makes her proud figure even more hot and charming. Compared to her upper body, she wore a pair of denim shorts for her lower body, and her big white legs looked extremely slender under the design of the clothes. This is a person who understands fashion. Although it looks very decent and can be worn on the street calmly, it still gives people a feeling of budding. Her graceful curves and sexy figure are vividly displayed in the suit of clothes. Beautiful, handsome, sexy, mature, just like an urban beauty. It's off-duty time now. Maybe she changed her clothes specifically, but Igarashi Runa was very calm, and for good reason. What's more, her outfit is for everyday wear. She is not afraid of meeting people at all, so there is no reason to be shy. Miss Runa, your clothes are really strong. Kurosawa Hikaru withdrew his gaze and couldn't help but admire. He had felt like this when he first met her. Miss Runa has a lot of knowledge about dressing. This is a long-awaited feeling, because I don't know when Miss Runa met him, her dressing style became more conservative. She usually added a jacket and zipped it up. But this time, the zipper of her coat was only zipped up to her waist. The right distance and matching design made people's eyes involuntarily focus on her lining. Compared to you, he's not that powerful. Igarashi Runa met his admiring gaze, feeling quite happy in her heart, and replied. When he went to shoot on Monday, Kurosawa Hikaru took Chizuru to buy clothes. In a short period of time, he picked out several outfits that could perfectly show off Chizuru's coolness. This shows that he has a strong interest in Chizuru. How deep is your understanding of clothing matching? There's no point in praising each other, let's go. Kurosawa Hikaru smiled and stood up. Set off. Igarashi Runa nodded, then walked forward, picked up the remote control, and turned off the air conditioner in the lounge. The air conditioning in the office must be turned on 24 hours a day only in the recording studio, because in this hot summer, the Steinway piano must be given a suitable space for maintenance and storage. Then they walked out of the lounge together and started walking down the stairs. Where are we going to celebrate? Igarashi Runa followed behind and asked. Find an izakaya. Kurosawa Hikaru already had the answer to the choice of venue. He wants to date Miss Runa, and also wants to do a date mission. After all, why not get the best of both worlds? If you go to an izakaya, you don't need to drive, right? Arriving on the first floor, Igarashi Runa glanced at the garage door and asked. Don't open it, so as not to have to make another trip later. Kurosawa Hikaru nodded. If he knew he wanted to drink and drove there, he would be asking for trouble. After saying that, he walked towards the door of the office, opened the door and stood aside, wanting to give the lady priority. Squeak. However, Igarashi Runa did not walk out immediately. Instead, she stopped and reached out to zip up the zipper. With this movement, most of her proud figure was immediately hidden. Although her beautiful legs are still eye-catching, the outfit is very particular about design. Once the balance is broken, it will be different. Even so, Kurosawa Hikaru knew that she had an extremely hot figure hidden under her windbreaker. I don't like being stared at. After Igarashi Runa finished this action, facing his surprised gaze, he explained and walked out of the door. Let's take a taxi. After closing the door and leaving the office, Kurosawa Hikaru looked at the surrounding environment and pedestrians and said, "That's such a waste." Hearing this decision, Igarashi Runa frowned. In her opinion, unless there is an emergency, taking a taxi is extravagant and wasteful. It's not a waste to do this. Kurosawa Hikaru shook his head at this statement. Igarashi Runa looked at him in surprise. Is he the type who spends money lavishly? Because I don't like you being stared at? Facing her gaze, Kurosawa turned to look at her and stated his reasons. Hearing these extremely possessive words, Igarashi Runa's beautiful eyes were fixed, her eyelashes trembled slightly, and her heartbeat accelerated a little. Kurosawa spoke as if he thought of her as his girlfriend. Tokyo's most affectionate. Author, Wodada Shuchu Wujin. Chapter 386. The ambiguity between men and women lies in interactions that cross the boundaries of normal friends. This kind of interaction is difficult to define in terms of method or certain actions. The key lies in attitude. Attitude is more touching than words, eyes, and physical contact. Oh! Igarashi Runa looked at Kurosawa Hikari in front of her, her heartbeat was fast, she paused for a while, and nodded with a slight blush. Let's go. Seeing her reaction like this instead of arrogantly saying who cares if you like it or not, Kurosawa Hikaru smiled. In fact, if the words he just said were spoken suddenly, it would feel very abrupt, because they were very close to a confession. But if the atmosphere is right and the timing is right, this won't happen. The reason why he said that was because he discovered something. Before Igarashi Runa walked out of the office, she zipped up her zipper. If it were winter, this action would actually be nothing. After all, the weather is cold and you need to keep warm, but now it is summer. Because of this, the subtext behind her actions is naturally intriguing. In addition to this, coupled with her statement, the meaning is self-evident. Perhaps she herself was not aware of the situation, but Kurosawa Hikaru felt her attitude. I know I look beautiful like this, and if I go out on the street dressed like this, people will definitely stare at me, so I have to hide my figure. This kind of behavior, interpreted from another angle, is that I don't want to be stared at by others, but you can. The location of the office is quite good, just a short walk from the road, and we quickly hailed a taxi. Izakaya is a restaurant that provides alcohol and food. Different from a simple pub or snack bar, an izakaya is a shop that combines the characteristics of the two and has a very neon character. Neon people, regardless of gender or age, like to go to izakayas because the environment and dietary conditions can satisfy all kinds of people. Congratulations on signing 4 big deals today, cheers. In a separate compartment, 2 people sat facing each other, clinked glasses, and drank the wine in one gulp. After work, I really want to come to the izakaya and have a few drinks. Igarashi Runa finished her drink and was in a wonderful mood. Do you like drinking? Kurosawa Hikaru put down his wine glass, feeling a little subtle but also curious. Because he was drinking, the entry-level wine tasting experience card was activated. He could feel that the wine in front of him was sake and how it was brewed. However, such a skill is difficult to use. After all, 2 people are drinking and suddenly start talking about the year of the wine. They are talking about it, which is completely pretentious. I can't say I like it very much. I just drink a few glasses of wine after work and sleep more soundly. Igarashi Runa shook his head, poured himself a glass, and poured wine for him. Your sleep quality is not good, Kurosawa Hikaru asked again. Because he had to keep a distance before, his understanding of Igarashi Runa was all superficial. For example, she is an agent, has good clothes, a good personality, and strong working ability. Different from her appearance, she is also very virtuous and takes care of the house. Her family is not very harmonious and she has a bad relationship with her parents. As for what she likes and what her hobbies are, she knows very little. The best way to get closer to someone is to get to know them better based on their interests and hobbies. Working in the entertainment industry is like working on the tip of a knife. If you are not careful, it may lead to a big mistake. Because I am afraid of this and that, I will always have random thoughts when I sleep, and I will be more anxious. Igarashi Runa nodded slightly and explained. Is the job of an agent so tiring? Kurosawa Hikaru asked thoughtfully. Obviously, she is not a heavy drinker, but she still likes wine. In fact, there are many reasons why adults like to drink. Most people drink, either because they are forced to do so, such as the wine table culture, or they want to use alcohol to relieve their worries and temporarily put aside the worries of reality with the help of alcohol. It depends on the person. I value work more and pursue more things, so I will be a little more tired. Igarashi Runa held the wine glass and drank a glass of wine, which made her feel a lot more relaxed. Whether the work is tiring or not depends on personal needs. Some people pursue nothing and are willing to settle for the status quo, naturally taking it easy. She is more motivated and pursues her career, so she is naturally more tired. Well. Realizing her situation, Kurosawa Hikaru fell into thought. What's wrong? Noticing his troubled look, Igarashi Runa was a little curious. I was wondering how I can make you sleep comfortably. In response to this inquiry, Kurosawa Hikaru said very distressedly. Then have you thought of a solution? Igarashi Runa rolled her eyes at him. She always felt that these words were very ambiguous, but she didn't want to expose them. This guy has been dishonest since this morning. He always says some misleading things. I don't know if there is something wrong with him. Even so, she didn't hate it. Because compared to the previous state where he was polite, serious, and kept his distance, Kurosawa was quite new to her. What methods do you usually use to sleep well? Kurosawa shook his head and asked. It's actually quite difficult to get a good night's sleep. When I'm at home, if I have insomnia, I'll make some snacks as a late-night snack and drink 2 cans of beer, or I'll go to a massage shop and get an essential oil massage. After loosening my muscles and bones, I'll sleep well. Igarashi Runa looked at him, her beautiful eyes turned slightly, and she held the wine glass in one hand and shook it. We are already drinking. Can I give you a massage later? After hearing this answer, Kurosawa Hikaru said immediately. In fact, with today's contact and interaction, he has already realized why the funds for dating Igarashi Runa will be wine tasting and massage. Wine tasting, Igarashi Runa probably hopes that her significant other, who has the capacity to drink 1,000 glasses of wine, can safely send her home after she gets drunk. Massage is because the fatigue accumulated in daily life needs an opportunity to be released. As for the previous summer date with Xiaoyuki, why did she have the date funds for the massage skill? I guess it was because the girl was thinking about applying sunscreen, because it would be more comfortable with the technique, so she had it. You've already been drinking, why are you giving me a massage? When Igarashi Runa heard this, the corner of her mouth raised slightly, a little funny. When a man says he wants to massage a woman, it is impossible to help her relieve fatigue and relax her muscles and bones, but to massage her. I know, but a two-pronged approach would be more effective. Kurosawa Hikaru said seriously. Are you okay? Igarashi Runa looked at him sideways. You haven't seen my skills, how do you know I'm not good at it? Faced with such a look and attitude, Kurosawa Hikaru was immediately unhappy. The most unacceptable thing for a man is to be considered unacceptable by a woman. Have you ever been to a massage parlor? No. Kurosawa shook his head. Although he knew that the neon custom industry was booming, he used to be an extremely self-disciplined scroll king and had no such worldly thoughts and pursuits at all. As for putting aside self-discipline and deciding to celebrate his youth, now that he has a girlfriend, there is no need to go to that kind of place. You really haven't been there. Igarashi Runa looked at him in surprise. Normally, neon adult men have more or less visited custom shops. Isn't it weird that you haven't been there? Kurosawa asked. It's not strange, it's just that you haven't experienced good massage techniques, so why do you think your massage skills are good? Igarashi Runa then thought about it. This guy is so handsome, there is no need to go to that kind of place, so he didn't worry about it anymore, but teased. Didn't you massage me just now? Your technique wasn't good enough. The beauties in the massage parlor are much better than me in terms of skills. Perhaps she learned some techniques through experience, but Igarashi Runa is still self-aware. Her skills were completely at the level of a layman. She didn't even have the support of theoretical knowledge. She just copied the gourd and learned the tricks. In comparison, the technicians in massage parlors are too professional. Regardless of whether your skills are good or not, you just massaged me. I have to repay this kindness. Kurosawa Hikaru didn't brag about how powerful his technique was, and instead used another method. Let's have a drink first, and we'll talk about other things later. Seeing that he was quite stubborn, Igarashi Runa did not refuse, but just raised his glass. Good. After receiving such an answer, Kurosawa Hikaru did not continue to pester. Cheers. Skipping this topic, Igarashi Runa clinked glasses with him. When you drink, nothing special happens. It's just like eating. It's just a peaceful time. The two of them chatted while drinking, covering a wide range of topics, including work, family, and gossip. Today's chapter is a bit watery, and it's still very short. If it were normal, I would have asked for leave if this happened, but since I'm in the recommended position, I can't ask for leave.